And we live. Yep. So Chloe, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
How was the week? Work, everything.
It's busy as usual. So many meetings, you know, personality clashes, drama. It's
Oh,
always there.
drama.
Yeah.
Is it female drama, work
No, it's
drama?
all
Which
men.
which of it?
It's all men.
All
All these,
men. I don't
all
believe
these
you.
men get. Oh,
I don't.
you,
I don't believe you.
you don't believe? You don't
I
believe
don't
me
believe you.
when men get
No, I
into
don't.
drama?
No, men don't. Men don't do drama. Men
I
do
didn't.
fists.
I did not know that Will Smith was now a woman.
That was a one-off thing. That was that
Nah.
was basically because, his wife gave him the look and he had to respond.
Okay, then what about all the drama in the discourse, which was all men talking about the slap?
But that wasn't drama, that was just a discussion. That was sort of a debate, you understand? So,
No, it was drama from what some left the Discord.
how? Explain how it was drama.
I was there. People took things too far. People took things too seriously. It was. I don't want to name names. You know who.
Mm. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I'll admit, also at work before this one guy went on baby leave.
Mm,
So many men going on baby leave at my job. It's funny. And but like because some of the guys they have some gender neutral names. He was explaining to
mm,
me, he's like, one guy who's named Morgan, and there's another guy named Kelly. And so he was explaining, he's like, oh, did I tell you about, like Kelly's not talking to me anymore. And the idea. And then I was like, if you just kept all the names the same and just said everything that you just said to me in a
mm,
Valley Girl voice, this is high school
mm.
drama. It sounds so ridiculous. He's like, he's not talking to me anymore. And all because of Bridget. And Bridget told me to do this. And then she said, don't talk to Bridget. And it's like, oh my God, why is this drama?
So what's happening to the men in your office? Why are they acting like that? What
I,
is this a
I
Is it
don't
just something
know.
that's unique to your office, or is it a societal
No,
wide
I
thing? Why?
I feel like it's a societal wide thing. I don't know what's wrong with you guys. I'm just sitting back and saying, like, why are there so many guys just like in all these fights? It's just weird.
Wow, feminization of men.
And all these guys are in the military too. It's just so funny. Like their their hobbies is just like shooting guns. So it's like just I don't know, just go out and have a beer and shoot some guns. Why are you talking about this drama? I expect better from you
So
guys. Jeez.
did you give them the advice to to you know to toughen up and stop behaving like sissies?
I was only talking to one person and he was already going on baby leave anyway, so it's like, oh, let's hope it clears up by the time he gets back. I don't know.
So how
Uh,
does the baby leave work? Does he go for a month? Does he go for 3 months? When does he go? Is
it's
it at the
well,
birth of the child or when?
it's you have to take the allotted time of baby leave. You have to take it within a year of the baby is born, so you can actually break it up. So it's actually
Oh,
close to that year being up, and so some of them they're like, I have to take the baby leave or else they lose it. It's free money,
mm,
and
mm.
it's
Okay,
basically a
so
free vacation, right?
it's a paid leave.
Yes, it's paid leave. So
Oh,
there's
that's
one
good.
guy who he just had a baby. He was only gone for maybe like a week, and then he came back, but he still has like 5 weeks left that he could take,
Mm.
between now and next year.
So do these men, do they usually complete the baby leave, or do they end up coming back like this guy?
I mean, like they all will complete their baby leave. It's just they will break it up.
They
Like
don't go at a stretch.
they don't take it all at once unless they want to. I've seen one guy take it all at once.
Mm. Oh, that's cool. 5 whole weeks. Wow.
Well, 6 weeks.
Well, 6 weeks. Well, it's good. Now you know now that men can actually get pregnant and give birth. So makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, it is very helpful for like, they go with their wives to appointments if their kids are sick, if they're, like
Mm,
if stuff happens, during the first year, right? It's actually very helpful.
yeah. I think it's great actually. I think it's great because if it's something for the fact that it's flexible, that they can break it up within any time within the year, it's just great. You understand? Because if it was just fixed for maybe the first few months of life, then at that point in time, maybe the mother will have people around. At least in Africa, the mother usually has people around. So at that point in time, might not be so necessary. But later on, when every other person has gone back, if there's something that comes up within the year and they can take their leave, that works beautifully. So
Mhm.
that's a good one. That's a good one. So where is everybody? We just have one person in the stream right now. Where is everybody? I know Dr. Mason is having her stream right now as well, but we
Mm.
got to we have to move on. We have to continue with our conversation. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm sure people catch the replay later. So welcome back, guys. This conversation is something that I do with Chloe every other Friday, and we are back again. So before we start, if you're joining us, please like the stream. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the stream, and you can also support this channel on Patreon. The link is in the description below. And if you feel so inclined during the stream, you want to support with super chats and super stickers, that would be very fine and welcome. And also, by the way, my book is on Amazon. It's sitting on the bookshelf. It's a great book. Grab a copy. The link is in the description below. You're going to enjoy reading that book. So why don't you get a copy? And Chloe, I think we actually thought about talking about that book sometime last year, and
Oh
somehow we
yeah.
just we just skipped it.
We just kind of
We
dropped it. Yeah.
we have to find time to talk about it.
Hmm.
We have to
Yeah.
find time to talk about it. So let's get to the business for today. News, media, and when we're talking about media, I mean all media, not just mainstream media. I mean social media. I think that there is a lot of misinformation going around. I think there's a lot of wrong information. I think there's a lot of censorship going on in all sorts of media. And I think there's a lot of manufactured news going on in all sorts of media. And this is something that I, I think um, maybe it's always been there, but the scale with which we have it now, with technology, everything just gets worse. With technology, everything gets worse, and with social media,
Hmm.
everything gets worse. Everybody can just be at the back of a keyboard, type up something, and share it with the world and claim it to be some news. But
Hmm.
what pains me the most is that those in corporate media who are supposed to be more responsible, who are supposed to have the ethics of journalism, they are the ones. They are part of the problem. They're a big part of the problem. I didn't used to know this problem about Western media until 2016 during the election cycle because I was introduced to Trump by CNN, and the things I heard about Trump from CNN, I was like, no way this guy is an American politician, and no way he's going to win any. As in, I didn't know. I felt he wasn't going to go anywhere because the way he was painted and all that. But okay, I decided to check him out for myself. I found out that yes, he was abrasive, and his technique has a lot left to be desired. But some things that were said about him were just outright lies. So, and I saw this pattern repeating itself over and over again. But I don't think this is a problem of only left wing media. I think the right wing media does this too. So they are both equally guilty of, peddling, censorship or pushing a particular narrative. They have a particular narrative, and truth doesn't seem to be the goal here. It's as if they are struggling to score political points, and
Hmm.
they are they can can sacrifice the truth just for the sake of scoring that political point. And it's just so sad. It's sad.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the one of the things is the 24-hour news cycle, essentially, kind of, because you have to fill time. You have to try to engage viewers at all times, because it used to be news at 11 or news at 10 or news at whatever, and it would let people, it would have to curate as
Mm.
to what was actually the most important. And it's like, okay, like there's all these other things, like we have like an hour or two to fill for the news, and we have to pick the best things, and we have to at least speak to as many people in that 2 hours as possible, and not just to one political side. And so I think it feels like it was a little bit more higher quality. Yeah, there could have been possibly some propaganda in terms of how certain particular maybe conflict is being reported in the news, because especially if your main sources are the government, and you don't have as many boots on the ground of a particular conflict, so you have to rely on potentially biased sources. But now it's like any and everything can now become news, quote unquote. Now it's air quotes have to be inserted with all of these things, because um they it's still operating under the premise that it is intended to inform people. But I think that now it's more so entertainment, under the premise that it's like empty calories. You think you're getting something, and you're not really getting much out of it, but you still feel full, or you still feel like you have some nutritional value, and that you have something to share. And uh, and again, you're going back to the 24-hour news cycle. Now, like in the 24-hour news cycle, you're competing with everything else, right? If you want to go watch a movie, if you want to go, watch a TV show that happens at, whatever, you're now competing for that attention as well. And so they have to kind of hype up things to be as entertaining as other things that people would watch, or people would do, or people would entertain themselves or consume themselves with. And I think that that just has caused, when you cross that purpose, like like something that's informative is not always entertaining. But if you always have to make it entertaining, you're just decreasing the quality of it. If that is the first and foremost thing that you are looking for in news, right? And that's just that to me, that's just the mark of the degradation of news. Because now it's all comes to your phone. Now it's also Twitter. Now it's also all of these yeah, like even all media, to the certain extent of all these other channels that are also competing for clicks and views and retweets or whatever. And it's all like, now the quality of it, or the not the quality of it, but the marker of quote unquote useful or news is basically just how many people watch it. And that's just that to me, that doesn't make sense at all.
So for me, two things come to mind. The first one is commercialization of news,
Hmm.
and the second one is, you know, news being opinion based. It's no longer news, it's just opinion pieces. I mean, there's very little objective news that has been told. There's very little facts that has been sold. It's just opinions couched as facts. We have there's this piece of information, there's this kernel of information. I'm not going to tell you the way it is so that you make up your mind for yourself. I'm going to surround it with this fantastic story and paint a certain narrative and sell it to you and say, this is the news. I mean, I understand that the opinion pieces exist. And if they are termed as opinion pieces, that would be fine. That would be really, really good. Okay, look at this Buffalo, was it the Buffalo shooting? The white guy, the white
Hmm.
racist guy stuff. Yeah, the Buffalo shooting. I was watching Colin Near. There's this black guy on YouTube. There's a gun rights activist. I was watching him about that shooting. There was a particular segment of the interview with a black guy who actually spoke with the shooter a day before the shooting, had a conversation with the shooter at that same place before the shooting. Now, when other media when they were reporting the interview with this guy, they removed a very key part of the interview, because after this guy had talked about so many things, he talked about the need that, okay, if there were more people with guns here, he probably would have stopped this guy before he did so much damage. You get? Now, Fox News, obviously, because they are for gun, they do not want gun, as in they want to uphold gun rights. They played the whole clip, but the other media decided to remove that part of the conversation. Now, supposing that guy had said, we need more gun control, we need more gun laws and everything. Now, here's what will happen. I'm sure MSNBC and CNN will play the whole clip, and probably Fox News is going to cut out the other part where the guy was
Mhm.
talking about.
Or
You
just not play
understand?
it at
So
all.
you get, so you ask yourself, so if you're listening to CNN and you're listening to MSNBC or even Fox, do you think you're getting accurate news? Do you think you're getting balanced news? Do you think you're getting the truth? Don't you think you're getting a censored, edited version of what the truth is, of what actual news is, combined with the fact that everything is now about money? It's terrible.
Well, like I don't like I think there is an aspect of why do we need to know this, right? And that's the big thing that sticks with me is that why do I need to know about the Buffalo shooter? Why like even like and this is kind of gets more so into entertainment, right? Like that's why like no one needs to watch X-Men. Do you need to watch The Matrix? Do you need to watch Downton Abbey? No, people want to because they want to be entertained. And so it's kind of interesting to me where people, they're not as honest about the news as to why they need to know about these things, because they say, well, you have to be informed. But why do you have to be informed about these certain things? Because most people are completely willing to be ignorant about things that are true, but they don't really want to do it. So like there are plumbing codes, right? Or there is the science of electricity. How does electricity work? How do electronics work? How does software work? All of those things are true, but no one really wants to know those things because it's not useful to them. It's not entertaining to them, or it's a knowledge that they can't really use, right? Or they don't really want to use it. Um, but for these types of things, it seems like, getting back to the opinion base, they're put forth so that it can fuel a person's political opinions to do something else. And that's the thing that I really don't like about the news in general, is that that's the last part that's left unsaid of, now go forth and use this to perform XYZ action. um, and that's why it feels like that people will guilt other people for not being quote unquote informed, because, well, then you can't um, be another political actor with this piece of information, with another bullet in your political gun, right? And personally for me, like a lot of, like, yeah, when these tragedies happened, for Buffalo, or even the shooting in Texas, I don't watch those news reports really, especially when they're early on. A lot of information tends to be inaccurate. Breaking news. A lot of the information doesn't tend to bear out in the long term. It's very emotional, but like it's not even information that I can use because the event has already happened, right? And in my life, but then people's like, well, but what if there could be a shooter in your in the school next to your house or whatever, right? But then that's the local thing. That's not the same story as this other person. Like both of those shooters don't have the same profile, or they're not even from the same demographics. They're not from the same area, so it's still, like, on a certain level, it's still a case by case basis. I think maybe if we have a greater conversation about, hey, maybe we shouldn't ignore young men until they act out to a certain level, like murdering people. Um, but a lot of those times, those conversations, and again, with all these shooters, people try to couch that conversation, and then they quickly it quickly goes away because the entertainment of it isn't there, right? No one really it's not that conversation has to last longer than the news cycle in order for it to mean something, and that conversation will never last longer than this news cycle. So it's still, even the way that our minds work, it's still kind of pointless to me on a certain level. um, and again, like, people talk about, like, they keep trying to push these same thing: gun control, Second Amendment, men's mental health, and then as soon as something else trendy comes up, all of those topics die away. And so it's none of those
Yeah,
topics
yeah.
are long enough for any meaningful thing to happen.
It feels like a script. I mean, it feels like a script that is acted out every time a tragedy like this happens. Once a tragedy like this happens, you get the Democrats come out with, we need more gun control, we need more legislation on guns and all that. And then the Republicans telling you that we need more access to mental health. So you keep asking yourself, like I think I heard like Joe Biden signed a particular piece of legislation today or something, or about gun control and all that. But is that going to stop the next mass shooting? And I bet you when the next mass shooting comes up, he's going to come up there on the podium again and say these same things and possibly sign another piece of paper. And then
Mhm.
you ask yourself, what what use is this signing he just did, aside from the symbolic impact, aside from of what importance is that? Is it even worth the paper it's written on? Is it worth the ink he's using to sign these things on?
Mhm.
So
It,
a lot of the time it's just
it's a virtue signal. And then that's what it just ends up being. It's a kind of hollow gesture, because sometimes I see, like, they like, something happens, right? Whatever it is, something happens, and then someone picks it up and they kind of twist that narrative to fit into their political pet project. And so they get a piece of legislation pushed in, but because they've twisted that original thing into what they wanted it to be to get their thing to push through, it actually never really applies. So you have now this new piece of legislation that actually wouldn't have even solved the original issue, but they're like, oh yeah, we did something, but they never even took the time to really understand the nuance of what exactly happened in that situation. And is there anything that piece of legislation can do, right? And again, it's just interesting. Like, no, like, there are no new ideas that don't even really take traction. Because I guess, yeah, I had lunch with a coworker today, and yeah, we did touch on the shooting stuff, and we were both like, we've already had these conversations. We're like, why aren't people just talking about insurance, man? just get insurance. Um, and it's an unsexy potential solution, but it might actually work, but it's not performative enough for people to take that solution seriously. So
mhm,
it's never going to happen.
that's interesting. So these politicians, is it that they know what to do and they're not doing it? What gives? Or is this problem an intractable problem? Is it a problem that cannot be fixed? At least you have given an angle of something that can work. Is it that they are looking at it and seeing that, okay, this thing, even though it's going to work, it will not sell, it won't get votes, it doesn't have the emotional appeal. So
Mhm.
let's just shelve it. Let us go for something that has that emotional impact, something that can motivate people to want to vote for us. Is this all
Yeah,
about power and the votes
yeah.
and not
It's
really about the
I
people?
think it's about, yeah, I think it's about power and votes, because I mean, like, so it has to be a whole, like, wholly an idea that that one side can fully embrace, right? Because is it because, I guess, getting back to this, the insurance things, I know, like, she says, like, her husband hates the idea. He's like, any restriction on guns, I don't like it, I don't like it. She's okay with guns, but she's like, she's like, sweetie, like, we just be reasonable. Like, we need some reasonable stuff. And we, like, because she looked at the case, she's like, yeah, that kid shouldn't have had a gun. But if we had, a invested body that was interested in, that you had to charge insurance, they actually have an interest in monitoring those things because there's a financial interest in that, right? But at this moment, what are you going to do? You're just going to report every crazy guy to the police before they do anything? That's also an untenable idea. Like, because someone can just make a slanderous statement and make someone look crazy, or like I guess like you even into another situation of he said she said of like the Amber Heard and Depp case, right?
Mhm.
Anybody can say anything about someone in the moment and get certain actions in the moment, and if it's true down the line, who knows, right? And so like there is that balance of you have your rights, but also there does need to be sometimes oversight, right? Just like with cars, right? If I had a history of drunk driving, it will get to the point where I cannot financially afford to drive anymore because I could not afford insurance.
Mm.
That's a way, right? And also like my license could be revoked, but like once my license gets reinstated, because it can be reinstated eventually it's the insurance company like, yeah, we're not going to insure you anymore because you're kind of bad at this. um, and we don't want the like the liability. And so, but yeah, like those types of things, like it's not like that idea. It's not something that like gun rights advocates are like crazy about, and also that idea is not something that people who are anti-gun are crazy about either. It's very
Mm.
so in the middle ground that I think that's what makes it perfect. But people want all or nothing, and that's what they
Yeah,
want to report.
and it's so sad that people are so ideologically possessed that they are unwilling to even see that there might be merit on the other side. Then I you know when you know when I started this YouTube thing and all that, when I guess I got getting very much active on YouTube, I used to follow a lot of quote and unquote conservative voices, conservative black voices on YouTube and all that. But at a point in time, I had to stop because I noticed that even they themselves were employing tactics that were similar to the tactics of the side they were opposing. Because at certain points in time, instead of them to be fair and objective, just because they think that by being fair and objective might undermine their position, might undermine the ideological position, they're just going to, bang their head and be intellectually dishonest, which is not good. I think that there's a lot of good in the middle ground. There's a lot of, which is where most people should try to reach out to. So it seems as if the world is in a constant debate. I watched, okay, I think it was Fred who shared the debate between Brianna Joy and this guy, this Turning Point USA guy. What's his name? Found out the turning. I think Charlie Kirk or so.
Mhm.
And I couldn't get past the first 5 minutes because of course, although I agree with Charlie, but he just kept interrupting his guest. He was just belligerent. He wasn't letting her making a point. He was combative and all that. I mean, that was no way to have a debate. Even when he had the conversation with Buck Angel, he was still that same way. You understand? So when I look at those kind of conversation, I see that this person is not willing to have a conversation. This person is here to prove a point. You understand? This person is
Mhm.
here to score some point. And it just turns me off because if you're doing that, the other person also he gets their defenses up too. Now you can't even have a fruitful conversation. But if you both actually listen to yourselves, you might find that you have more in common than you thought you did. But no one is really no one is willing to do that. Nobody wants to take the middle ground. Everybody wants to just dig in their trench in their ideological position and defend it to the death.
Yeah, but then also again, like if you just have a middle ground, you're not going to have a very much of a passionate audience base. You're going to have very nuanced, level-headed people, right? People would rather have a smaller, dedicated fan base than a large, lukewarm. Like, oh yeah, like, oh, sometimes we watch,
Mm,
sometimes we don't watch. No, they want dedicated people that are
mm,
guaranteed to root for their side. They're always going to be there. They're always going to support them. They're always going to um and it also it's very easy to know what opinion to state because you're It's your fan base's ideology is more
Mm,
homogenous. It's very easy. It's much easier. But if you're nuanced, right? Um, and then you kind of have to you might be left out to high and dry, right? You might have to be heterodox to your audience, maybe, right? And you're like, well, no, this is actually how I see it. You guys may disagree, and
mm,
if your fan base is actually just expecting you to be another ideologue, and you realize that you reveal that you're not, right? You could have genuinely had all these other opinions that they're like, oh yeah, you must automatically have these other opinions, but then you realize you reveal that you don't. You actually do think out all of these opinions, and you hit on one that could be consistent with that one person, but it is inconsistent with the ideologue that they're kind of the box that they're put in. They could just lose everything.
mm, mm. So they realize this and they know what they're doing. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah, I do.
they,
I do really think that they know their audience. And again, this is what you do in entertainment. You know your
good
audience.
Lord, wow. I think I noticed it with this channel as well. Back in the days when we used to be very into the race stuff, into the race stuff, you were having live streams. We had more participants, we had more people watching. But um, now it's just, people. I think we're trying to have more nuanced and more balanced conversation, and it may be boring to some people. People might not find it interesting, but I think it is incredibly interesting because we will have the chance to question ourselves, to
Hmm.
actually debate without fear that the other person is going to get offended. And that's part of the things that I do on the Discord. When I'm pushing back at times at Steve or Brad and all those, I'm not even saying this is what I believe at times. I'm just, I'm pushing back, I'm asking questions, I'm trying to see whether this argument is the best argument, whether it can hold, you understand? And maybe in my head, I'm that free to the extent where I believe that, the best argument should always win, not the argument that I am holding, but I think the best argument should always win. But I think at times people in general, they just want their arguments to win. So when they see that, it may just become a turn off. But I actually like such exchange. I want to be able to disagree with you, Chloe, and know that tomorrow was still cool. You understand?
Yeah.
And that's the thing I still like about Brad and Steve. We butt heads a lot on some things, and then we're still cool. We'll move forward. But there are some people that will not do that. So, yeah, Larry said, news media is not perfect. What is the truth that they might be censoring? Whose truth is being censored? Truth has become a political commodity. I totally agree. Truth definitely now is become a political commodity because it seems as if there's no objective truth anymore. It's is this truth, is that truth, is my truth, it is the left's truth, the right's truth, the Democrats' truth, the Republicans' truth, the Islamic truth, the Christian truth. There's really no objective truth anymore, and it's bad for the world. It's really bad for the world.
Yep. So in general, that's why I don't watch the news. I just don't. Um, and and again, like people would say, like, well, how can you be informed? But like, so um, there are forest fires in my state, right? And I
Mm,
did not know about them from the news because cell phone towers, like, you get an alert on your phone. Like, if you are in a particular area, it will tell you if you need to evacuate, all these things, right? And so it's this
mm,
information that's actually faster than like the news or like searching it on Twitter or whatever. And there are so many different now ways that we can directly get information. Like, let's say weather. No one really needs
mm.
to listen to the weatherman anymore. We have like
Yeah.
new like we don't have news, we have the weather reports on our phone, right? We don't have to, there is actually a particular app that I really liked. It will tell you like how long the rain will last. Like if you're in a place and suddenly it rains, okay, well, it lasts just 10 minutes, and I just need to wait underneath this awning for 10 minutes, and then it, or is it going to last an hour for heavy rain, right? And this information can get very sophisticated, where we are less beholden to, I guess, these news organizations for these things. And I guess that also leads into why they've over specialized in this entertainment aspect, because yeah, we don't watch them for weather anymore. We don't watch them for all of these
Mhm.
other things. We have other more reliable news sources for that are 24/7. And so I guess I think that they are seeing the writing on the wall for certain things, and they're trying to inflate their own importance.
Mm. So, but aren't there better ways for them to still keep their audiences engaged without killing the news? Because these network stations, say Fox News and CNN. Okay, I think they also have their entertainment channels. So the Fox News itself is dedicated to news 24/7, which is, I think, is a very bad model, because you can't have news 24/7, except you have to repeat a lot of stuff, or you have to cook up a lot of stuff. So if there is a time that is dedicated for news, within the day, it means that it's not spread out so thin, so that when you're giving out the news, it becomes, it's worth something, you understand? And in between, the other programs that you could put in there to engage your audience. But it seems like these news networks, they want to eat their cake and have it. You have another channel that is for entertainment, and it is these same people that you're entertaining that are going to watch the news. Yet you want them to watch the entertainment channel full time. You also want them to watch your news channel full time. So you now make your news channel also about entertainment. How is that even going to work?
Well,
I mean, it's crazy.
I guess now with streaming and now like YouTube and stuff like that, like you don't necessarily have to tune in at a certain time. You just have to tune in, like,
Yeah.
like, oh, that you will go to them, like you will watch a Tucker Carlson clip or a Rachel Maddow clip, or because yeah, not that many people watch live news anymore. Probably older
Mhm.
people. I know my parents do.
Yeah.
But yeah, like people today, like your younger people, I would say, um, yeah, they take in all their information asynchronously. Um, and I think that's another part of it's like the attention economy of that they have to pay attention to, right? Like they have to make sure that their video is what you're going to click on instead of
Mm.
someone else's video. Or like if you're it's almost like if like to implant their conceptualization of that event or that news first in your head, as opposed to another opinion of how to see something. Because I think I don't know if there's any research on this, but like how people's conceptions of something can potentially fundamentally change based off of who told you first, could also be
Mm.
something.
Well, maybe we deserve this. Maybe this is the way, the world would function going forward. Because if people's attention span is very short, if people are looking for things that are stimulating, and these are businessmen, they have to remain in business. So they'll do whatever it takes to remain in business. And this is the way it takes for them to remain in business, these sharp practices they are doing. So maybe we will be fine somehow.
Well,
I think humanity always turn out to be fine.
the CNN Plus definitely totally did fail. So they were trying a more so Netflix subscription model to the news, and it failed after a month.
Well, that's because in news isn't that interesting enough for people to stream in the first place. So isn't it obvious that it was going to fail from? Is there any other network that does a streaming service for news? I don't know. If it's
Yeah,
for
I know.
entertainment, it's for movies and the rest, yeah. But for news, why does CNN think that they're so? Who's giving them that
Yeah, no,
impression that?
I have no clue. I have no clue as to, I don't know. It's like I understand that you have to present a certain level of authority, or that like all of your content is really good, but it seems like they're drinking
Mhm.
their own Kool-Aid of where, have you really thought about this? Like, will people really pay? Because I think the vast majority of CNN viewer, honestly, it's like playing in airports. It's like playing in places where
Exactly.
you're not
When
paying
people
for it.
people don't have a choice, you don't have a choice. Even in Africa, even in my country, if you walk into the banks, if you walk into shopping malls, if you walk into the airports, it's fixed on CNN 24/7. So you don't have a choice. So it's only only in your homes that you have the choice to flip the channel. So that
Mhm.
might even be giving them a false, false sense of how the viewership, because people in the airports and in the banking halls, they don't have a choice. They can't change it. That's why they're watching it. If they had a choice to move to something else.
Right,
So
right.
now, those same people, do you think that they are going to subscribe to your streaming service? It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's like, oh, it's like you like, I don't know. It's like you love our news, right? Or that whole idea. It's like, well, no, like, I think wasn't there someone who said, like, a CNN executive said, they kind of wish that the COVID numbers, of death numbers, were kind of higher because people were so rapt to look at the death count, right? And they realized it was amazing for ratings. And it's like, it's not like people love CNN. You just kind of scared the crap out of them, so they couldn't look away. And they like confused. It's kind of like, I think they thought it would be like Stockholm syndrome, right? That they would eventually come to love them. But as soon as they kind of didn't really give them a reason to like watch, or like, definitely not a reason to pay, like they're not gonna do it. Yeah, it's bizarre that they thought that people would pay for that. Because like, it just, yeah, it just makes no sense.
Well, maybe people would have paid when Trump was in office and they made a business of making a ridicule out of him. People would have paid, but
Hmm.
right now, not. I mean, Trump was basically a golden goose for CNN 24/7. He was giving them constant,
Hmm.
as in he was giving them content, hot content, hot content. And then
Yeah,
I used
I
to
mean,
watch
I don't know
CNN.
what they're gonna.
I used to watch CNN a lot. I used to watch it not because I agree with what they were saying basically, but no, I really wanted to just see. I wouldn't go to Fox News because yeah, I may agree with what they're saying, but they're going to be just as biased. So I didn't want to be in a bubble, an echo chamber. So let me go to the side that I know I don't trust them at all, but at least I should be able to filter some things that they are saying. And that was why I was watching CNN then. But now I can't remember the last time I watched CNN. I just flip past it. I go to Nat Geo Wild or or Discovery Family or something. And if I have to get
Yeah,
anything from the news, I get it from my phone.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's Yeah, I just personally, I don't see a point, because it's like, this seems like overblown. This seems it just, because they hyper focus on things, like, because something might be true, right? But is it really as prevalent as you think it is? Is this really the case? So, uh, I already mentioned it, but I have been actually, following a little bit on the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, and I think it's fascinating as to what some mainstream media, outlets are saying about the case versus anybody who actually watches the actual trial. Because one can say, you can make that case into news, but like this trial, it is what it is, right? Because let's say a random couple was getting divorced, right? They're going to have, or they're going to court together. That happens, but no one's going to consider that news. My niece had a birthday last week. That's a fact, but that's not considered news. It's what the lens that the news, um, it's the lens that the news and the spin that the news puts on that makes it news. And but it's very interesting as to, because most people who watch the trial, they're overwhelmingly on Johnny Depp's side, because the evidence, like, pro him is overwhelming, versus for her, like, that information is almost laughable.
Why
And
does she have this constant look of I'm about to cry on her face whenever I tune in and see any of her videos? It's like she has this look of I'm about to cry. Is that how she
she's trying to look
naturally
at
looks? Or
she's trying to look like a victim.
good Lord.
She's playing the part, essentially. I mean, It's just, like that's her story, that she is a battered victim. So why wouldn't she look like she's about to cry if that's what she like, that's how she wants to portray herself. Um, yeah, it's bizarre, but it's just interesting because like I think Vogue put out a piece like probably last week saying it's time to believe Amber Heard, right? And they're looking at some of the corners of the internet where they're extremely cruel to Amber Heard. I mean, yeah, some of it is granted, but I think like they found some really egregious statements that were said by her by people on like TikTok or something, and they're using that saying like, see,
But
this is
that
everyone. Yeah.
that doesn't have anything to do with the case. I mean, someone
Mhm.
else's opinion of Amber Heard has nothing to do with the facts on ground about a process that is going on. So if someone is being shitty to her outside of the courtroom, on social media, on TikTok, on YouTube, and how does that have a bearing? How should that have a bearing on the case that's going on? Should
Well,
should she now be believed because people are mean to her?
right, but like
She isn't in court with
the
people.
but I saw someone make this point, and it's a really good point, is that they're trying to cover up the tracks that they actually failed the story originally because the whole news media was supporting her, right? They bought into the story that Depp was an abuser, that she was a victim, that they promoted her based off of those things,
Mm,
partially based off of those things. Like she literally said that she was the face of domestic abuse, right? And she was getting speaking gigs, she was getting accolades for that type of advocacy, and all of these, everyone is supporting her. And even when more information, I think some of the audio tapes came out a few years ago, none of the news cycles said like, oh, we have more information, let us correct ourselves, right? It's
mm.
kind of feels like they're doubling down, and that's why, well, we still have to believe her, because then if they stay that course, they don't have to actually admit that they were potentially wrong, or they're doing articles saying like, well, she's an imperfect victim, right? Or you have to believe victims, and if Depp is right wing, or like, yeah, like right wing men are following Depp and they support Depp, and so yeah, that they're literally trying to make that spin. They're literally trying to make that spin, when the funny thing is, and he's like, you have to support Amber Heard in order to support domestic abuse victims. But the funny thing is, I saw a video of a domestic abuse victim who was supporting Depp because she supports domestic abuse victims, and that's how she sees Depp. She's like, no, he's also one. So he's also,
Mm.
they see him as part of the club as well. And but it's interesting of this bias where they have to double down, and they don't realize how hypocritical they are. Um,
And something I noticed about the trial is that I think they're bringing in things that are even irrelevant to the case of, for example, when you're bringing in clips or videos of or pictures of him passed out from alcohol, from cocaine and all
mhm,
that. Yeah, someone might be shitty in one aspect of his life doesn't mean it transfers into him
mhm,
being shitty in another aspect of his life. So he might be a drug addict, doesn't mean he's going to
he-
hit his wife, doesn't mean he's going to
right.
abuse her physically, understand? So I don't get what they're
It's
trying to do with all those things.
it's interesting. So what, in terms of that coverage, I actually watch lawyers to actually talk about it, and I actually have learned, you actually can learn a lot about like these types of court cases, or like the law, and how these things, so like all these objections and how it's all structured. And there is a reason why they're bringing up these things, because it is to, so the case of defamation is actually notoriously very hard to prove, because you have to prove
Mm,
malice, and malice in the sense of disregard of the truth. So like, let's say,
mm,
if I know, I don't know, let's say I know something about you, and like, I know you're a Christian, right? You go to church,
mm,
and I definitely know that you're not a Satanist or something like that. And I say, "Oh, Charles is a Satanist," right? Knowing that I know that
mm,
that's false, that is technically defamation, because
mm,
I know that it's a lie, and I knew the truth, right? You have to prove that you know the truth, and you also know what you said was a lie. Now, if someone has bad information about you and they repeated what I said, what that other person said, like, isn't defamation, because for all they know that's true and they don't know the truth, right? But what I
Mm,
said would be slander specifically. So the reason why they're trying to make that case and they're pulling in all this information is to basically prove that she wasn't afraid of him. Two, that, like, this is their dynamic in their relationship. So they have to bring in all
mm,
of these weird things to build the narrative, essentially, that she wasn't behaving like a battered wife. She wasn't really afraid of him because, like, let's say you have a high profile husband. Let's say he did beat her, right? Let's say he did do that, and he will beat you at the drop of a hat. And you take a picture of him passed out drunk with ice cream in his lap, and you just tweet it to your friend. You just send it to your
mm.
friends, knowing that definitely get you disciplined,
In
right? Like,
public, yeah.
right, like, or being right. But like the fact that she did that and she was very glib about that, if in the text messages says something about the nature of that relationship, and when they asked her about it, she's like, "Well, I was asking for help." No, like, her literal message was, "This is what I have to live with." Right? It's a kind
Mm,
of very glib. So that's why it's interesting of where, for the cases like this, typically people don't have this much documentation showing the context of it. And so I think that's why they had to, like, dump all of this information, because I guess in isolation, yeah, you can probably make a narrative about certain this or that, but they have to, like, flood this with all the context of the text, the context of her, like, how she was talking to friends. And so, and then confront her with saying of, like, you don't really sound scared, right? um,
okay. Now, let me play devil's advocate a bit. Let me take the side of I know
mhm.
this is going to be incredibly difficult to do, but let me take the side of Amber Heard. Could it be that she was just frustrated with his kind of behavior, with him just being irresponsible, with him, um, drinking and partying and drugs and all those things all the time, and she was just acting out of frustration. You understand? Maybe she has tried to reason with him, and nothing is working. Yeah, she had to, this is a reaction to his toxic behavior. You get? That's why
Mhm.
all this thing happened. Maybe that's why she began to abuse him physically, because nothing
Yeah.
is working and she's
number one
frustrated.
Number one, it's still abuse, and it's still defamation if she tries to make him out that he abused her. It's, like, and I would admit, definitely hearing about all the stuff that he did, his drug use. If anybody who was probably married to him or in a relationship with him was probably, it's difficult, right? It's probably difficult having a partner that is abusing drugs or is constantly drunk. But I will also say that Amber Heard wasn't also exactly sober either. Like, she did ecstasy, she did mushrooms, she did cocaine, and also she drank like a fish as well. So, like, it's almost,
Is that why they took her for Aquaman? Drinks like a fish?
no. Yeah. um actually the DC president actually testified on that. Actually explained why she was, kind of, her role is pulled back in Aquaman 2, which went to the damages of that she was claiming that he did on her, which isn't the case, actually.
Wow. It's all crazy. It's all crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
but still, like, anybody who actually sits down, and actually, the thing is, the most damning thing about the case, that the thing that ruins her case, is her own testimony. And so, even listening to the lawyers, they said at the beginning of this case, it was actually Amber Heard's case to lose. It was actually on her side. One, because defamation is extremely hard to prove, and then two, um, like, the initially her claims, before she kind of said this crazy story, those things are kind of believable. Like if they actually constrain the argument to verbal abuse is also abuse, I think that Johnny Depp would have been found, oh yeah, then that counts, because on the audio, like you can say, and even text, that they're both like he was verbally abusive to her. And so if she just
Mm,
constrained her argument to he was verbally abusive to me and he might have shoved me a few times and said like, yeah, that
mm,
then that counts as like, she would have actually probably won. But
mm.
she ramped up her story to the point where it was actually literally incredible, because saying that the level of sexual assault that he did to her is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like if it's at that level, you have to seek medical attention. You literally have to seek medical attention for those things. Like there's no way she would have gone through those things and then walked a red carpet event right like day after. That's like makes no sense. um, and so she ramped up her story to the point where she lost everybody, I think.
That's she So now it depends on what the case is actually about. So if the case was about verbal abuse, she had a stronger case because
Mhm.
Depp abused her verbally. But because she took it, maybe she wanted to heighten the emotion of it all, she wanted to heighten the sympathy, and she wanted to make him seem as bad as possible. She did the other thing, which makes me wonder at times when people do certain things, when bad people do certain bad things, don't they think about the consequences? How do they even think that they're going to get away with it? How do they even
I
think they're going to get away with it?
Well, I think
Or they don't think at all?
I think that and this is actually from the video I saw of the domestic abuse victim, and what she said was, and this is she was relaying her story, and she said the thing with abusers, and if we're gonna call Amber Heard an abuser, is that they tend to have a posse, which Amber Heard did, right? They tend to have people that they know 100% they're going to corroborate their story no matter what. Amber Heard had her friends, which were all mooching off of Johnny Depp. So they have a vested interest in keeping her friend, like their friend, happy. And then, also Amber Heard's sister, you know, um, and so like what this woman was saying was they make a story that only makes sense to the people they are expecting to hear it, that is going to be put forth up front. So what this woman's saying, like, she was basically abused by a superior at work, right? And this was in the Air Force, and I think eventually, she was the abuser. She was going to keep crafting a story, and she had all these reports written about her and all that kind of stuff. And so she was going to send her to the psychologist to get her basically certified crazy. But the psychologist, which was outside of that context, right, actually realized all of this information made no sense. But all this information under the influence of the abuser, it's in a context of a bubble that makes sense in that context, right? And so the stories tend to fall apart when it actually kind of gets outside of that level of influence. So, Amber Heard talking to other Hollywood people, in the media, knowing how the media operates, that they're not really gonna like investigate these stories too deeply if everything
Mhm.
looks like it fits the narrative, right? They're not going to corroborate the story. They're not really going to investigate it. And so, in terms of Hollywood and like these media op-eds, the story makes perfect sense because powerful man abuses young wife,
Mm.
right? But as soon as you go into a court of law where you actually have to lay out these logical arguments, and you can't, you actually, there are actually like many objections, right? Like, let's say, and even watching the case, it's a really good lesson in like law and all that kind of stuff, like the objections, right? And what, direct examination, like when they're directly talking to Amber Heard versus what cross examination can do. For direct, they can't, so if they say like a question like, um you like, you called this number because you were afraid, didn't you? Right? That is an objection that's leading. right? You can't make a narrative built into the question when you're talking to your own client on the stand or your own witness, right? But in the media, you can totally do that. But once you're constrained by the logics of a court, it's clear that all that stuff falls apart. Like, especially like when they have to submit all the evidence in one big, and you can look at all the evidence at once, right? And that's when I think it was interesting on Cross, right? They noticed, oh, do you realize that you submitted the same picture twice? And you said that they were on 2 different days. Like, once you set things up in that way, like when Amber Heard was crafting the story, like in feeding these information in chunks, in that little moment when you can't corroborate all this information, it makes sense, right? It can make sense to a person. But once you actually lay it all out in a very straightforward method, it falls apart. And I think most people don't live in that context of the court, right? Most people never get their disputes brought to the court. You're talking to a person, and you're dealing with the person's attention span at that point in time. You're like, what they're thinking about, how they're feeling, how they're processing that particular information. How long has it been since they heard that other piece of information that might actually be contradictory? The people might forget that, oh, you said that the other thing, or maybe, people only really would realize that those two things contradicted each other later on. But if you, in that moment, you craft that narrative that's really compelling, you won't notice those logical inconsistencies and that the story doesn't make sense, but it feels right. And I think that's what these people are looking for. They're looking for the narrative of what feels right. And that's how most people operate.
Wow. So now let's move this conversation to another area. Let's talk about the role of the media in these mass shootings, because it seems as if some of these other mass shooters that are coming up are kind of copycats who want fame. They want their names, they want fame or infamy. And a lot of the time, once these things happen, we know everything about this person from what they ate 2 days ago to how they're like, their name, the school they went to, their family history, everything. So in a way, is the media feeding? Are they feeding this monster that has become mass shooting?
I
Where
think
people, we might not even know the names of the victims, but we know the names of the perpetrators. We know everything about them.
They have their picture. I'm sure that some get the. I remember the Boston bomber. He has a fan club. Like they. I do think that, especially with the ones that say like they did want their 15 minutes of fame, they did want to be on the news. I do think that knowing how the media operates, it does feed into that. Knowing that their picture is going to be plastered everywhere, knowing that their name's going to be everywhere, knowing that they're going to be remembered, I guess, for a time, right? That somehow they think that they can get their word out there. Did you hear about apparently the guy who attacked Dave Chappelle on stage? He actually gave an interview, and his stated reason was he wanted to create a dialogue like about homelessness, like basically trying to advocate for queer people and the homeless people, right? And he wanted people to know that you can't joke about those things, or you need to consult those people. Like, I never heard of someone trying to advocate for things with a knife, but that's what he stated what he was trying to do. I don't quite believe it, but I do think that the media gives people a false sense of like, this is a platform that I can get on and somehow get the word out, right? The same thing with I remember the Santa Monica shooter. Like, everyone knew what his face, like, his name, his face, his manifesto got out. Everyone read his, like, a lot of people read his manifesto. They, even if they die, they kind of get what they wanted.
Wow. Hey, Kevin, Kevin B. Black. It's been ages. It's good
It's
to
it,
see you
it
back.
it has definitely been a long, long, long time. I'm always happy to be here, as you already know.
Yeah. How have you been, man?
I am doing pretty well, man. School and work kind of having me away. It's somewhat sometimes difficult to balance both.
Hmm.
How close are you to graduating? I thought you were pretty close.
Yeah, I have one more year to go, and then I'm
Okay.
through.
That's
Yeah,
cool. That's cool. Almost there. That's cool.
almost, almost.
Yeah.
So what are we talking
So,
about
what's
today?
up? Yeah, we're talking about the media. We're talking about how media censorship, how the media is censoring truth or facts, and how basically right now news just sucks, and there is really no substance to news. It's just opinion based, and it's all for the marketing. It's all entertainment, and there is no substantive news. And looking at it from both the right and the left, and no, it's not just a left thing now. This thing is something that happens both the right and the left. And we talked about how the media coverage of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial initially, when all these things came out, they did not do their investigations. They just took the side of the woman, believing her to be true. And even right now, they're not trying to correct. They're still sticking to their false position. So, in a way, we're analyzing how the news creates false narratives, how media houses create false narratives, and not just media houses, all forms of media, YouTube, and just name it. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about.
Oh, all right. So you've said a lot there. All right. So sometimes when I try to diagnose the problem that I see with the media today, I'm trying to figure out where I should look. Because I do think the media is to an extent a reflection of the society. If we're saying that the media have a profit incentive to give us what we want, I think the fact that the media give us what we want is a problem with us and not the media. The reason why sensationalism sells is because of us. We want the negativity. And while at times we might decry it, I think deep down we like consuming negative information. And that is why the media is in the state it's in today. It's because of us and not the media. So when we try to decry the media and say this is a fault of the media, I don't think so, you know. I just think it's the fault of us, and we need to look into ourselves deeply if we want to solve the problem.
Well, I think already said this earlier, but I think it's also exacerbated by the 24-hour news cycle, right? Like, there's only so much information. Like, let's say the news was only an hour or two a day, right? There's only so much kind of information you could put in those that hours, but um, I think it's similar to why Facebook is probably bad for people's mental health, right? It exploits a it exploits like the dopamine kind of cycle in human brains. Like, yeah, that is a fault in humans, but I don't think that we're going to re-engineer how human brains work in any time soon. And that's why people are trying to speak out about children without fully developed brains using social media, because they don't have the um, they don't have the discipline to, or even knowledge to know like what they're kind of training their brains to do. And so it is, I do agree that it is does reflect something inherent to people. And but
So the solution to the problem then is what? Get rid of social media?
what I never said that. I'm
No,
saying,
it's a question.
well, I mean, like, I think that there definitely should be age limits on who participates in social media, right? Um, but I think it's kind of like we need like a cultural adaptation, right? We've had this thing introduced into our culture, and we don't really have any social kind of controls as to, yeah, when it should be appropriate to kind of use these things and when they should be used. And I think that's slowly coming around now. But like, I'll give an example of, we have a concept like in the West of like, it's kind of a bad look to start drinking in the morning, right? Like you should kind of wait to an appropriate time in the day to start drinking alcohol, right? But when alcohol was introduced to some Alaskan natives, right, and because I'm from Alaska, they did not have those cultural kind of limitations, or like, you know, maybe you shouldn't feed children alcohol. They didn't have any of those kind of cultural things. And so when they first introduced alcohol to some Alaskan natives, they drank it all the time and they gave it to children. And it was like, it was this new thing that they did not handle very well initially when it was introduced into the culture. And now they have more, you know, in terms of villages, laws about alcohol. They have, like, you know, they've had to learn from those mistakes as to when they first got introduced to it. And I think something similar, I'm not saying laws specifically, but like I think we have to have something similar with social media of like, yeah, you know, like it's not an appropriate time to kind of be doom scrolling, right? Like, you know, we're now you're seeing articles saying maybe don't like look at Twitter before bed. And once those kind of rules kind of get kind of disseminated and become tacit rules within our culture and society, then I think those negative effects might be tempered. But until then, it's people are like having to figure out it all on their own, or maybe they don't realize that the negative effects they're experiencing in their lives are due to how they're using social media.
Yeah. Steve, jump in.
Oh man, I'm just hanging out with the cool kids. No man, which topic are we on right now?
Hopscotch.
Yeah, hopscotch. No, but for real, I had to jump out of my truck real quick, so I lost where we were at.
Okay,
No,
so
I think we're go on. Sorry.
Go ahead. No,
I think we're just explaining the basic topic to Kevin, and I don't know. It's just like where we are, where we've gotten with like news. I think that news probably was just better when it actually had more limitations, right? You know, again, you know, like, oh yeah, news at 10. You watch news for like an hour, and therefore they have to put in the relevant highlights because they can't put in everything. And again, it's not about as much about ratings. And then also like the 24 news coverage kind of turns news into more entertainment, which I think inherently kind of sets it on a bad path. Because I don't think news should be entertaining. And the fact that we want news to be entertaining, I think it is a problem. I really think the most important news should be the most boring thing ever.
But why shouldn't news be entertaining though?
Why shouldn't news be entertaining?
Correct. Yeah, that's the question I asked.
Because then I think it leads into incentives to deviate from the truth, because, you know, it
incentivizes you to make it entertaining instead of just maintaining the informative nature of the news, of journalism.
Yeah, like if the truth is boring, but you want to make it entertaining, that means you have to insert maybe, you know, lie out of omission, maybe some half truth, maybe conflate it with something else that's not related, maybe try to hide, you know, maybe just lie. I don't know, or like, you know, it's you have to fill it with something in order to make it more palatable. Like, you know, it's I kind of feel,
but something can be informative and truthful and also entertaining. Would you not agree?
yeah, that could be the case, but if we are only going to bring up things that happen to be informative, truthful, and entertaining, we're going to actually lose sight of a lot of things that are informative that we probably should know about, but they're not entertaining. And still, it's still like selective bias for entertainment. You're still going to lose a lot of things that are important, but because they're not entertaining, you're going to lose that stuff as well. Like, just because, like the fact is, everything can't be entertaining. It just can't, right? And and also sometimes I feel like, some things they kind of inflate it to be, oh, this is really important, you have to pay attention to this. But the thing is, in how people live their lives, it's actually not relevant whatsoever. And so people are, I think they're manipulated into thinking that like this is the most important thing ever, in order to justify why they're watching it. And kind of like, it could also be, again, entertaining, but they're kind of like inflating the reason why they're so wrapped to this as like, well, no, this is actually really, really important. But sometimes people should be honest with themselves. Oh, I just watch this because this is a dumpster fire and I love watching it.
I could agree with what you're saying, but to a certain extent, I think the opposite is true. I think the less entertaining you make the news, the less engaged people will be in wanting to consume news, and that is the problem. Is I think we have to make news entertaining because I think we want the population or want the public to be informed about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think if we want to somewhat have people more informed, then we're gonna stop making the news entertaining. I think to a certain extent, I think that's the wrong direction because
yeah,
if you're not interested, you're not gonna watch it anyways.
What did you say?
I was just saying, if you're not interested in it, you're not going to watch it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The idea of journalism is primarily to inform, right? That's the main thing. I don't care how entertaining stock markets are. I'm not interested. I'm not going to watch it. If I have stocks, then I am definitely interested, and I don't want to be entertained. So I think the entertainment aspect is, I kind of think it's kind of a moot point. If I want to be entertained, I'll watch Netflix or something else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch news to be entertained. I watch it to be informed.
Yeah, and
I think that's the only place I would disagree with you, Kevin.
But Steve, you make
no. What I'm saying? Okay, go ahead, Chloe.
No, I guess the Steve's point of like, if something is actually relevant to his life, right? He has a particular stock. Like, let's say he owns Tesla. Right? He owns Tesla. He's invested in it. When there is information about how Tesla is working as a company, maybe some things that Elon Musk is doing, or if they're being audited or something like that, he doesn't need to be entertained by that. It is relevant to him, and so he will be informed by those things. But I think it doesn't. That's the thing is like you say like people need to be informed, but be informed by what? And does everyone equally need to be informed by everything that we're being presented? I disagree with that. You guys probably you don't know, like there are forest fires in my state. Have you been informed by that, Kevin?
How do you make forest fires entertaining?
Drop a load of marshmallows on top of it.
It smells great. But like, Kevin, do you need to know about the forest fires in my state?
Mm-mm.
What'd you say?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Right. And so like that's the kind of thing that I'm kind of hinting at, is that like the news sometimes it presents things like you have to be informed by these things, but when you get down to it and you pay attention to the news story, it's kind of gets this false sense of pay attention to what we care about, and they're trying to conflate it like because you should care about what we care about, but in reality the things that really do matter in our lives, if we don't watch the news, we still know about it. We are still informed by these things. And so like I didn't watch the news to find out there are forest fires. There is an alert that's on my phone that says there are forest fires. Don't go to this area.
But we can look at it, right? Look, for example, the New York Times, right? And or the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal, and just look at the section that I read most. It's more the that's being read the most, and that is the thing here, because a lot of the stuff people complain that the media doesn't report on. The media does report on a lot of these stuff. They're in the gleaner. or they are in the New York Times or whatsoever. But those sections are generally not the most read section. And that's the point is I think the problem is not what the media want us to see, but what we want to see the media puts right in front of us. Because the media can give us 10 stuff that we want to look at, and then we look on this one. And therefore media realize that we're looking at this one and therefore continuously put it in our face. I think the problem is with us, then the media. I don't think it's the media, then us.
But
Um,
go
I
on,
was
Steve.
I was just going to say, if we make news entertaining, I'm going to posit an argument. That argument is if we make it entertaining, if it's anything less than absolute factual, then what we're doing is we're intentionally hacking the viewer's brain to produce a response that we want, and that is entertaining. I mean, you could put a bunch of clowns in the courtroom with Johnny and Amber. Now it just becomes a joke, right? But it should not be a joke. This is going to be one of the most important cases of defamation that will ever be, and we need to take it seriously. So I don't want it to be entertaining. I want it to be exactly what it is. If you make it anything else other than that, then you are manipulating the viewer.
Hmm.
No, I think manipulation is to a certain extent a strong word because I think when you're saying manipulation, you're saying that there's an intentional um intent to deceive somebody. But
No,
I'm
no, no,
just
no,
saying I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with like
Manipulation doesn't have to
Fox
be
News
negative,
or
man. Manipulation doesn't have to
pardon?
be negative.
Yeah, manipulation does have a negative connotation.
No, what he's saying is you don't have to
But
manipulate something to be negative. You
no,
know,
no. What I'm saying that the fact that you're saying somebody is manipulating somebody mean that you're saying that the person is doing something bad.
Well, when I'm
Okay,
throwing
so
a baseball, I'm manipulating it through air, right? It doesn't necessarily have a meaning to it. It just means I'm doing something to it in physical space.
yeah.
There should be no negative connotation to the word manipulation unless it's
It,
preceded or followed by negative or positive.
yeah, it can be a neutral term. But so getting back to something that you said, Kevin, is that it's not that like all of these news stories, they're just they're making these news stories, right? Let's say let's say they make 100 articles. They make 100 articles, and we
Mhm.
just so happen to be picking the thing that happens to be the most entertaining. The media has a thumb on the scale of let's make this spicy. They know what people will watch, and so it's not that they're so happening to be making something that everyone is going to click on, is that they know how to manipulate the facts, or make it into a context or connect it to something to make it more entertaining and more palatable. It's not like, because like no one is if they did the same type of attention, if like they did the same type of attention they're doing maybe in some article about Johnny Depp to Amber Heard, and they made an article, they put the same amount of attention and changing, making, doing A/B testing for the article title for like an economics paper, um in order to get clicks on that. Like they're not just purely at the sway of the masses. They have market research. They understand what people want to see, and therefore they are intentionally trying to offer that up and feeding into that, so it is
So wait, I
positive
think
feedback.
what you're saying does have a lot of negative implication in this instance. So you're saying that politicians should not exist because politicians tend to give one side of a story in order to get people to vote for them. Because I think what I'm trying to put forward is the idea that I think what we should as a society try to foster is people having the ability to critically engage with material. So I generally don't have a problem with Fox News. I don't have a problem with CNN. I don't have a problem with MSNBC. I know that these people are politically motivated, and when I watch their content, I am getting a side of the story.
So
And
the
there's no problem with that. But we're saying that people should be able to critically engage with this idea,
this
because this idea that news will just be straightforward and unbiased. It's just an unrealistic
okay,
expectation.
so what I said, I don't think that negates politicians, because again, we know they're inherently biased because that they're on a political side, right? And the issue I have with these things, or quote unquote news, is that they are trying to present themselves as unbiased. And I think that's a huge problem. And people are, I think they're playing with the lie in order to make their dogmatic position. Well, this is facts, right? And then they're kind of using they're using that to, you know, deepen their ideological position, because everyone is kind of playing along with the lie that this is somehow objective. And if everyone's just honest and like, no, I'm just partisan, right? I'm just this is just what I believe. This is my side. I'm gonna root for whatever my side says. I don't care what you say. If people are just honest about that, yeah, I'll be fine with that. But I don't like the idea of, you know, like, if I told somebody I don't watch the news, they would have it. Well, how are you informed? How can you know about anything that's in the world? You're not informed. But it but like, it's like what you said earlier, right? Like, we have to have people that are informed. But now what you're saying is, well, it's okay if people are just partisan as long as they agree they're partisan. And if we just, and that's completely different from quote unquote being informed.
I'm not sure if the disconnection was on my end because your audio kind of deep. I'm not sure it was on my end.
All right, so let me just jump right in quickly. I think I understand what Kevin is trying to say when he says that the problem is not the media, the problem is us, in the sense that they are reacting to what the people want. They are reacting to the kind of things that's fashionable now, that people want to consume. People want to consume sensationalized news. So that's what they're offering. Now, my counter to that is that news on its own should be a separate category that shouldn't be sensationalized. There should be other avenues for titillating the senses of people. There should be other avenues for arousing the interest of people in terms of entertainment and in terms of other things. Except the news is ideologically based, except the news is geared towards pushing a particular narrative. Because if the news is the same, if the news is the same with Fox News, the news is the same with CNN, then there shouldn't be a need for CNN to want to play dirty to get people to listen to their news, or for Fox News to want to play dirty for people to listen to their news. But if they know that that news isn't just the news, there's something behind it, they're trying to push a particular narrative, then definitely they're going to make it as colorful as possible so that people can hear their own version of the news. So as much as I understand that the news networks are reacting to the needs of people, I think that there should be a distinction between, what should be commercialized, what should be sensationalized for people. You can have your other segments, you can have your opinion-based segments and all that.
But I think people knows
When
that.
it
I
comes
don't
to the
think
news,
people go to.
in fact, news should be boring. That's what I think. News should be entertaining.
All right, so news shouldn't make any money because if it's boring, people won't buy it or consume it.
Why does it have to, like, so
Well, is
why does it have to make
go ahead,
so
go
much
ahead.
money? Like, that's the thing. Why does it have to make so much money?
Because people go because it's a consumer based economy. Yo man, that's capitalism 101. Once
Mhm.
there's a demand for it, there will
So
be a supply for it.
so why, like, it's not, the thing is that, so news is just a commodity, right? Truth is just a commodity. So why do we care that anything is truthful? Why can't it just all be lies as long as we're entertained?
Where can you when again with the question you kinda deep. I don't know what's wrong with your audio. Sometimes you deep. Re-ask the question, please.
Well, I mean, like, so then nothing is news. Everything is just entertainment, right? Like, truth is just a commodity.
I think that news station who purport themselves to be news station should adhere to truthful telling. I'm not understanding the question you're asking. You're saying that my point of view would enable news station to lie just to make money.
Well, I think that's what we're kind of like saying is happening now, is because it's such a commodity. It is because they're trying to make so much money from that they have a greater incentive to lie.
No, it's the fact that I don't know. I don't think so. The fact that there's a demand for these kind of news provide incentive for these news
Yeah.
corporation to create these kind of news.
But it's like, is a lie just a different type of news?
But
Even
should news be created or should it be reported?
Yeah, they also do kind of tend to create, like, they that's
I
another
don't
thing
think
that
news should be
they
created. I think news happens and you just report the facts and let people make up their minds. So when it gets into you creating news, then it becomes something else entirely. Maybe we should term it something else and not news anymore,
that,
because you can't create a fire, uh, like the bushfires that's happening now. You can't create it. That's something that's happening. You can report it. You understand? You can't create a mass shooting, but on the other hand, you can create panic around a mass shooting. You can exaggerate it to a level where it's not, or you can undermine it. So when you begin to tinker with the essentials of a particular story, then it delves into, it's no longer news. It's now a creation. So do you think that that should happen with news? That people should be as creative as the ones with the truth?
hmm
it's okay. This is leading me to, like, I don't remember what movie this was, but this was a Bond villain in which he had a news organization and he literally created the news so he can get the scoop. Um, and it would be accurate. He was accurate. He just, he was the one who sunk the submarine and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
um,
I
and
think I
and
remember that movie.
yeah, and the thing is, so, like, like, now it's causing me to
Wait,
think about,
can
like,
I make a point here?
yep.
I think I don't. I'm not being convinced. We have to divorce ideology from the news. I'm not convinced because I think our need or our attempts to just view the news in isolation. I think that's in itself is somewhat ideological. Because with it, just want to make a point. Because let's say there's a mass shooting, right, that took place the other day. I think it's okay if a news station come and say, okay, there, this is why the mass shooting take place. One, there's legislation that should have been passed that did not pass, and give proper context and give some context there. And there's an ideology that would disagree with it. So I don't have a problem with it. I just think you cannot all the time view the news in isolation when I think many action, the news itself is also influenced by ideology. I don't have a problem with ideology because I just think that escape it at all. I think I cannot just view news in a vacuum like that.
But what you're talking about is opinion, and we never said we had any problem with opinion. Like, that's an opinion piece, right? Like, this
Yeah,
thing
that's what
happened.
I'm saying. We news should not be divorced from opinion. That's what I'm
No, no,
saying.
no, but no, that is literally what it is called. Like, 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 it's an opinion piece, right? And at least we try to distinguish between an opinion piece versus the news, just the straight reporting of
Mm-mm.
facts.
No. You're mixing up the reporting on something is just stating the fact of
Hmm.
what took place. That is it. Reporting. The
Right.
news is you can give your opinion on whatsoever.
No, like, so this is, I think, in terms of television, this is the literal definition in terms of broadcasting, right? So I remember this was a critique of Fox News, where Fox News is literally classified as majority opinion. And only, like,
hmm
when they did a survey of it, only maybe, like maybe 2 or 3 hours a day were actually technically classified as news.
hmm
And so, like, and I do remember people did, give credit to some of Fox News's news. Like, I think it was, oh, I forgot his name. His last name was Shepard or something like that. They actually, because his portion on Fox News was the news, and they didn't have any big major criticisms of it. But the criticism of Fox News in general is that when they realize the majority of their stuff is opinion, but they're calling themselves news, which by the FCC rules, they're technically not. So that's where I have an issue, is that we are conflating, and the lines are being crossed of opinion versus news. I think news should just be news, and yeah, let something
Oh,
clearly be
you think
differentiated
that
from opinion.
news should just be reporting.
Yeah, if something is being called news, it should just be reporting.
I agree.
And then you can have you can watch your favorite opinion people. You can watch your Rachel Maddows. You can watch your Tucker Carlson, as long as you know that those are opinion people, and they're not, their job isn't
But
reporting.
I don't think people don't go to Tucker Carlson or Ration Mother for the straight news reporting. They know that when they're going to Tucker Carlson or
I
Rachel Maddow, they're getting
About that.
ideologically driven
I
reporting.
no, I don't think so. I think people do see those people as providing news.
Yep.
That's not true. I don't think so. I don't. Of course, they
I
see them.
I
No, of course they see them as providing news. But those
mhm.
know that they're coming with an ideological bent. That is why a Democrat is more likely to watch Rachel Maddow, and a conservative is more likely to watch Tucker Carlson because of the pre-existing ideological framework that
I
these
know,
people
but
operate.
like, especially, okay, like my mom, she loves CNN, right? And I could, it changes, when she talks about the facts, right? And the set of facts that she talks about, this is demonstrably true. I it is it is shaped by the ideology of the opinion people that said it, because she believes that they're news, right? And so she's not going to
You, you,
acknowledge she doesn't have the whole truth. She is not fully informed, because she's only getting one side of
but you
the
don't really. You
information that
don't have
is
to.
filtered.
I'm not really. I'm not sure. I think the conversation will break down a little because one, you need to be fully informed to have to have the truth, right?
But so what, like,
I'm wondering if the two of us is arguing something
it's
different.
well,
Because I am saying, one, this is what I'm saying. I don't have a problem with opinion being mixed with news. I do think there should be a separation, but I don't have a problem with both being mixed. Because what you are saying, that many people go to Rachel Mother Tucker Carlson for news, which is, I do think people, when they go to those people, they know that they are getting an ideological framing of the news. So I don't think the issue is there. I think the problem that you're pointing with the news is a problem with herself. So those are my position. You get
mhm.
them right.
Yeah, I understand your
So
position.
I'm not seeing where I'm
I
not understanding
the
you.
issue
Okay,
is, I
let,
I
let me
disagree.
come in right. Let me jump in right now. So I think that um, um, Kevin is making a point, which I
Uh-huh.
also agree with. Is I don't think that the opinion pieces, which I also think Chloe agrees with, we don't disagree that opinion pieces should exist. We think they should exist. But two things. One, at times, these opinion pieces are couched as though they are the news. Some people may know that they are going for opinion pieces, some people don't. You understand? So that distinction isn't there. But also, number two, the other problem is that even the main news itself is reported in such a way that it doesn't reflect the truth or the reality. Okay, let's take, for example, this Hunter Biden laptop issue and the all that's now magically disappeared again. Now, do you think that if CNN um, were being honest, do you think that they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't make a reporting, an actual reporting on the findings of that laptop? So they might just make a little allusions here and there to it, but by omission, what are they doing? They are already censoring what the truth is. They're already censoring what the facts are. You understand? I gave another example when we started this video about the guy who spoke with the Buffalo mass shooter. When the liberal media, MSNBC and CNN, when they were playing a clip of the interview with that guy, they played the first part, but they removed the part where the guy said, if we had more people with guns around, they would have been able to stop this mass shooter. Now, when you cut the news like that, what are you doing? You're essentially giving a biased you're giving a biased reality. You're not giving the truth. You're censoring it, and that's where we're looking at it from. So it's a twofold thing: both the opinion pieces that is
But
couched as news, and even the news
you-
itself that is edited to favor a certain ideological position, and that is where we have a problem with.
we all right. So I agree to a certain extent with what you just said, but we cannot have this weird obsession with the truth because at times the truth can be detrimental. Right. So I think the problem with the Hunter Biden laptop in this case is that how should we read Fox News? Fox News also rejected to report on the Hunter Biden laptop. Also, it wasn't just CNN alone. Fox News declined also. So the point is, there was a concern about Russia playing some influence in the election or whatever. Sometimes certain information is not useful or not necessary. I think in retrospect, I think it was okay information that they could publish. But I think sometimes we can also say, in order for us to preserve a form of our more objective outcome, be concealed. Because we can also think about the James Comey situation when James Comey commented on Hillary Clinton being under investigation couple of days before the election, when that should not be the case. So while that was a truthful information, that statement should not have been made. So I think sometimes we can conceal the truth. You can say it's ideological or politically motivated, but I don't think the truth is what is primarily. I think people ability to engage with information. I think that is what I'm concerned about, not just the truth.
Well, I think
I
the
would
best.
agree with that wholesale. I think the truth is all that matters.
Okay,
Like,
can I ask a question, Steve? Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Let's say that, right? This question. Let's say that since you're in the United States, that the United States, there was a terrorist organization was planning on dropping a nuclear bomb on the United States, right? And the United States has figured it out, right? And the New York Times has obtained information that the United States is going to deactivate this bomb. Do you think the New York Times should report on that?
If you're kind of blending into national security, but fuck it, I'll take the bait.
No, that
Yes,
is the problem. No,
is
that's where the
because
problem is. Huh?
when I'll tell you why. When you deny someone the truth, you are in essence denying them the choice to make about their own destiny, and I believe that that is wrong.
No, that's why. No, I think denying people the truth sometimes is a necessary component of a
but
functioning, a
that's the
necessary
government.
component of a
That,
I'm a
function.
Kantian by nature, so I go with Immanuel Kant when he discusses why always telling the truth is what's important. Is because if you don't tell the truth, you can lead someone down a path that creates just as much harm as you could not telling as telling the truth. So the problem that you have is either way that you go, it may cause harm, but the one thing you can rely on is that when you are told the truth, you are the one that's in control of your own destiny. You're the one that has the option. But when you are lied to, that option is removed from you forcefully by manipulating the facts. I
We
gotta go, guys. I love you guys. I'm gonna go take a vacation for the weekend away from the family. I just wanted to say hi and conversate. Sorry, I'm sorry, Kevin, that I can't retort, but
that's
that's just how I
that,
come. So
that's okay.
All right,
That's
Steve. Yeah,
that is being
bye, Steve.
by
I see. It's I think, well, like, let's say a news organization gets reliable information, that the government shouldn't have released. Yeah, I think they have the right to report on that news, and the government shouldn't basically force
with
them.
it. So if a person, right? That's a, remember this was the same situation in the Bob Woodward case, right? I think Brett Kavanaugh was somebody who leaked some information to Bob Woodward back in the past. and people were saying that Bob Woodward for should have. No, I think that is being vaguely remembered in my brain. But let's say a person is being sexually assaulted by a person. You think the news organization should also release the name of the person too?
It depends on their
But that's
ethics.
different.
That's different. That's different.
No,
Like,
it's the same. No, 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 no,
no,
no,
no,
no.
no,
You can
no, no,
no,
no,
no,
no, no,
no.
no,
You can
no.
tell
We're
the
not.
news. You
We're
can
not.
tell the news. You can. It's perfectly okay to reveal at that point that this person leaked a certain because it's relevant at that point in time. Okay, just like
Exactly.
Christian
That is
Blasey
the
Ford came
point
out.
I'm making.
No, no,
That is the point I'm
no,
making. It's the relevancy
no,
I'm trying to point out. You hit on the nail properly. It's
no,
the
don't
information
misuse
here.
And
don't
No, the
misuse my
information
don't
here.
misuse
Wait, wait.
my don't misuse
No, the
my point.
information. I think we all agree here.
This news,
With
no,
all
see,
internet,
okay,
I think.
okay, let me ask a question. That censorship that CNN did with this interview with that guy that spoke with the Buffalo shooter, when do you think it was necessary for them to make the full interview available? Why did they clip it? Is there a predetermined time in the future where it will become necessary for you to play when the guy said, you know what, if we had more guns, if we had more people with guns, they would have been able to stop the shooter? Or is it now? So why are they censoring that? So we can't say that it is not necessary now that we have to keep certain facts and wait for a future where it becomes necessary. At times, it is in real time that is when it is most necessary because people would have the opportunity to make up their minds or make adjustments or take certain decisions based on information. But when you are fed information that is not complete, is not accurate, you understand, people can make decisions that are detrimental. So that is why it is very, very necessary. I think when the news is happening, that's when it is most relevant for you to get everything out and not keep it to for a future to
it,
come.
so I do agree with you, Kevin. It's about relevancy, right? But relevancy for what? Because sometimes it seems like, well, this news organization supports XYZ political candidate, so they might not report on certain information on certain things. They only report on information that makes their person look good. So, is that, are they really giving the full opportunity to their audience to be informed, and they might be holding back information that their audience might actually take into account? Maybe I won't support this candidate, right? And things that they actually know they might care about, so they might, not, again, like, not report on certain things, or might even give an impression of everyone, like, so I think, like, the reason why that interview with the Buffalo shooter, not witness, but like the guy who had talked to him, reason why they cut that out is because they want to still present and give the impression, they don't have to explicitly say it, but they want to give the impression that everyone has the consensus that we need less guns. No one wants more guns. No one wants more guns. But if they had kept that whole clip in, they would have the audience will have an understanding of, this is a issue that has varying, people have varying reactions to it. People have different solutions to it, of people that, that seem like normal people. They're not just like crazy, white supremacist right wingers. There is a black guy who's saying, yeah, I think we need more guns. And so it will break that narrative that I think in their opinion pieces, they're trying to build using the building blocks of the news that they're, again, it seems like they're constructing by omitting certain things.
Yeah, but we all know that there are black people in Fox News that say those stuff that we want more gun. I don't think.
No, no, I'm not. The guy I was talking about is not a Fox News pundit. This is a regular dude. This is a regular person.
Yeah,
And
but I'm not. But what I'm saying is, we all know that there is a varying opinion when it comes on to gun issue.
no,
I guess what CNN is trying to do is to pick out the area in which what the guy stated they
I
agreed with, and neglect the area they disagree with. That's what they
so
did.
so
Exactly, which
I'm not
news?
saying
Is
it's
that
correct.
news?
Like, I'm not here to defend CNN. I really
But
don't
if you
watch CNN.
no, if you are only reporting what you agree with, is that news? Would you call that news? don't your audience do you believe that your audience are going to agree with you 100% of the time? Don't they deserve the right to know the other information that you may not agree with? So that's the contention. News shouldn't be reporting what the news organization agrees with. It should be stating the facts and let people making up their minds.
It should be informative. It should be informative. And if you're only reporting on half of the facts, a person can't really necessarily, I don't agree that they can be fully informed. If, like, let's say, I can give you all of the stats of, like what dihydrogen oxide, that it's a component of acid rain, that so many people die of this substance. It's a type of acid. It's all of these horrible negative things, and I gave you a cup of this substance. Would you drink it?
No.
It's water. I did not give you the full facts of this is a component. This is 70% of our bodies, but everything I told you about, like dihydrogen oxide, right, is completely factual. It is a main component of acid rain because it's water. But if you are like everything I said, again, was completely correct. But if I don't give the other side of, most people interact with this, bathe with it, drink it. Actually, you should drink a lot of it, quite a bit of it every day to be healthy. It's 70% of our body mass. It is a part of our blood. We have clean efforts to make sure that it's clean for people all across the world. If I only gave all those negative facts, it's like, I actually, there was a guy who made a video who played that joke, and YouTube literally censored that video saying it was promoting, and then he drank, he's like, I'm drinking this substance, and he drank it. And then the YouTube literally pulled down that video saying it was promoting risky behavior.
Drinking water is risky behavior.
Yeah. And
see, that's what happens when all the facts are not presented as they should be. When you're not giving the 360 view of a particular issue, it makes water become dangerous.
Yeah, and so, like, if like a person is not fully informed as to what it is, and I think that is, in general, I think what is happening with the quote unquote news, right? And I think that goes to why it is kind of dangerous to cross the streams between informative and entertaining. Sometimes you can have a magic, like if you have two lines that intersect, you have a magic sweet spot of this is informative and entertaining. That is true. But in something that's high quality information, you cannot bank on that in making money. So the thing that you can bank on making money is the entertaining part. So you diverge more and more from what is quality information. So I think it's kind of a lie to say that the news its aim is to inform you, because like you said, they need to make money. So if they have an option between making something more entertaining versus more informative, they're going to go with entertaining. And if you still want to technically call yourself informative, you just cut out all the facts that make it less entertaining. And I think and still, you can technically still call it news. You can still technically say all of those facts are true, and you're reporting on the facts, but you're not reporting on all of the facts. And it's not truly informing people. It's just entrenching people in their ideologies. And I would like to say that I disagree with you that everyone knows the game. Everyone knows this is all just ideological things. No, I know people in my real life that truly believe that what they're being told on the news is the truth, is absolutely the truth.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. I said a person who watched Tucker Carlson or Rachel Maddow knows that what they're getting is framed in an ideological way. That's what I said. People,
No.
I do. You don't think so?
What Chloe is saying, I don't think so. Some people think that is the real news.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But what Tucker Carlson did is the news being told ideological lens.
It's opinion,
No.
right? It's opinion, and that's what I said is the issue with the whole Fox News. They call themselves news, but a very, very small portion of their stuff is actually news. So they are lying by omission. They're calling themselves Fox News, and Tucker Carlson comes on something that's called Fox News. A lay person will think he's the news.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Fox opinion.
Yeah, he before
But
the show starts, he does say, "This is only my opinion. This is not reflective of news." And they don't have blaring banners saying, "This is opinion. This is opinion. This is opinion." It is all lying by omission. They allow people to make the inference that it's news, as long as they don't explicitly say it. They're not liable in court, which is actually how Rachel Maddow and Tucker Carlson, both of them, got out of lawsuits, because they never explicitly said those things, but a lot of it is, a lie by omission, and just by being associated by the fact that they're on a news organization that calls themselves news, both of them, and by they could be sandwiched between reporting. They are conflated with news all the time.
okay.
Yeah. So we've gone on for about 2 hours, close to 2 hours. I think this would be a good point for us to end the conversation. So let's just give our closing thoughts about censorship. And I think we focused more on corporate media, but I think that a big part of the censorship that is going on with news happens on social media, because right now even most people get their news from social media, and there are certain things you post on social media you're going
Sometimes
to be fine.
with the Charles, sometimes I really don't understand the problem that people have with censorship. Sometimes I don't, because whenever I hear it's being articulated by somebody who's against it, I don't understand clearly what they're saying. Are you saying that no, there should be no form of censorship?
No, I'm not saying there should be no form of censorship. I am saying that okay, there should be censorship for things like hate speech. There should be censorship for things like violence.
But this is the
There should
problem
be
with the
censorship
Charles. With
for
the Charles, Charles, this is a problem. You have created something so wide and so vague. What do you mean by hate speech? Like that is always a question, because whenever people is censoring something, they think they're censoring hate speech. So that is the problem. You have to clearly define what you think hate speech is.
okay. Maybe that example was too nebulous, but let's say there should be censorship for something like violence. You understand?
Inciting
Explicit
violence.
call of violence, incitement of violence. You understand? Should be censorship for things like that, but there shouldn't be censorship for just facts, things that actually happened. You understand? If something happened and someone is reporting it, then it shouldn't be censored. It should be allowed
So,
to go through. You
for
understand?
example, the Buffalo shooting, the video circulating online, the social media corporation should not take it down.
I don't think so.
Well, well, if it happened, I think they already have a good feature of they warn you that this thing you're about to see is of a particularly graphic nature. If you want to see it, you can go ahead to click it. If you don't want to see it, you can skip it. Most of the times, graphic things like that, I just go ahead and skip them. So I think that's enough. That caveat is enough. Shouldn't be it shouldn't be censored in that sense, because it's an event that happened. So let it be
So,
shown.
so ISIS and those terrorist organizations should be able to recruit people online.
Well, ISIS and those terrorist organizations are doing it for a specific purpose, which is to terrorize people, and their goal is to get as many people as to be traumatized as possible. So we can understand, the laws are not they're not cast in stone. And when we're talking about news, we're not talking about these extremes. We're talking about normal, regular news that is being censored, just benign
No,
things
I
that
am talking
happen.
about no wait. I am talking about. I am. This
No,
is
no, no,
what
no.
I am
I
talking
understand.
about.
I understand. But what you're giving now is you're giving me the extreme as an example of,
No,
so
no,
if I
because I am
say
trying to.
we
No, wait.
shouldn't
I am
we shouldn't
trying to.
censor news.
I am trying to prove to you, or try to demonstrate to you, that you're so hypocritical when it comes down to censoring, because you will decry censoring, but you're not clearly you're not clearly outlining what's wrong or good with censorship. I think when people like you talk about censorship, you just view censorship as bad. When clearly there's some aspect of censorship that is okay. I don't think people should be going online to see ISIS beheading people because it's news. I don't think that's something that should be online. I think there's some form of
I don't think it's this. I think I
So
don't think this is a contention between yourself and me. Like I said earlier, you are giving me the extreme examples, and those are the examples where I think censorship is perfectly fine. But we are talking about the mundane stuff. We're talking about the normal day-to-day news, things that just happen that people should know about. Don't you think that it was necessary for people to know about whether the president of America had some dealings with Russia? Don't you think it's worthy for people to know? Why should that be
so
censored? Understand?
so
but the
So those are
president.
the other
Yeah,
kind of
so
things I'm
so
talking about.
I will say that, you know, it makes sense for if there's a piece of content that violates the law, yeah, it makes sense to censor it. Like if there is a video of like a puppy being like skinned alive, or you know, like a snuff film, or you know, all of these things, which would, you know, count as ISIS videos, like snuff films, um, you know. But if it's just like, you know, someone is witnessing like a shooting, I think I, because of the intent of that video is not to titillate someone with murder, I don't think that that counts as a snuff film, and therefore is not legal, and I don't think it should be censored. But I think in terms of, you know, like how Twitter basically blocked the link and banned what the New York Post for the Hunter Biden reporting, which was, it was by a reputable, you know, it was by a reputable publication. It wasn't a crank article, and they still blocked it. I think that is a big portion of what we're talking about.
No, because I think the problem is I think it comes to a form of misunderstanding. I think there was also a leftist group that wanted to publish some CIA information on Twitter, and Twitter says it's against their policy to
Mhm.
publish unverifiable information. Remember, no, and people always miss out this information with it. People always miss out this information. Fox News did not want to report on the Outer Biden
Unverifiable.
laptop also.
But no, but I'm not talking about people not reporting on something. I'm saying when people say like it was unverifiable information, right? This was a reputable news organization that chose to publish
New
it,
York,
chose to
the
report on
New
it,
York
and they
Post, the
blocked
New
it.
York Post, the New York Post.
How did Twitter know that the information is unverifiable, that is unverified? Where did they get
Yeah,
their
because
facts from that this information is unverified without even seeing the information in the first place? Or is it not possible that when those information is out, the burden of proof now lies on the people who brought that information out to, oh yeah, prove your case. You understand? You have made these allegations, now prove your case. If you cannot prove your case, then okay, now we're having an issue. But you cannot just ban it from the outset without even
because
understanding whether they have.
you are, you know, Charles, I don't get, this is a paradox you're falling into and you're not realizing. The idea is you want to prevent misinformation from spreading. That is a goal. That is why you think censorship is not okay. You want to stop misinformation from spreading. If Twitter seen it itself that this has the potential to harm Joe Biden unfairly, I think it's incumbent up on the Twitter organization to say,
But
okay, we don't want this. And we know that the James Comey situation hurt Hillary, and James Comey should not have made that statement before the election.
the thing is, like, it's about. I think that those statements, both of those
The
statements, should.
information, the statement he made, was it true? Was it true?
Yes,
And did the
yes,
people need to know about it?
but Donald Trump was also, wait, you know, it is just true, but Donald Trump was also
So,
under investigation and he did not report on it.
if the information was true, if it wasn't false, then it should be able to come at any time.
Okay,
Yeah, like
okay.
the thing is, if this information comes out, I don't think that, well, we should just censor both sides just to be fair, right? Or like, but the thing is that they're choosing not to report on certain things because they have an agenda, right? They're not just trying to make people informed, because if they just wanted people informed, they would report everything. But They're not. Because they have a goal. Their goal is not to inform people of the truth. Their goal is to get this person into office because they like this person better.
Okay. I don't see where that is the case. I just think you and Charles is too ideological and is somewhat think Twitter is in the Democratic Party pocket. So therefore, I think when it comes on to hate speech, I think when it comes on to hate speech and those stuff, it's primarily or mostly found on the right. So therefore, the right will be censored most of the time because they generally most of the time tend to break the Twitter TOS, and that's it. I think sometimes we overcomplicate stuff.
I know some very bluff people that have broke the Twitter TOS.
And if you want to go wait it, I want you to take a task and Google how much left wing people has been banned from Twitter. Twitter has done it also to left wing people, but it does not talk right wing news, which I think you focus a lot on because these right wing people don't talk about left wing censorship. They only talk about right wing censorship. And I don't think censorship is bad.
What? So
Kevin, we're not arguing for a right position. We're not arguing for a conservative. In fact, we're
No, that's
arguing
what I
for
think you're doing.
no. So
no,
Kevin,
no.
Kevin.
We're using the examples. We're using examples. We're not arguing for any particular position.
So Kevin, is in your opinion, my opinion is that we should have no censorship.
No, this is a point. That is a point, and this is why I try to pin Charles on. You guys will argue or decry or go against censorship, but then when I ask you, I press you on it. But of course, any reasonable person wants some form of censorship. But I think when you guys discuss it, you leave that out of the conversation. Oh, we things should not be censored. But then
we are talking about in the context, we're talking about very specific things that are kind of ridiculous to censor those things. Of course, we're not talking about
I think it was okay to censor Hunter Biden laptop situation because of the potential to Joe Biden in the election.
No, but why? But they never censored any type of.
Why was it necessary? Why was it necessary to protect?
Because it could harm Trump.
Why was it necessary to protect?
What?
Why was it necessary to protect Joe Biden during the election?
Why
Why is that a goal?
Chloe,
Why?
When James Comey made the situation that Hillary Clinton was under investigation, Donald Trump was also under investigation.
Right.
And James Comey did not say a word on the investigation.
I'm not talking
He should
about
have.
Exactly.
Should have.
I'm not
He should
talking about
have.
Comey,
But
right?
you are saying no. You are alleging
No,
a political
no.
bias. I am saying that the bias here.
See,
Okay, James
Kevin,
Comey. Okay, you're so, we talk about how Twitter censored the Hunter Biden laptop, and then you jump to James Comey. James Comey is not Twitter. So if we're just keeping with Twitter, right? I don't think that Twitter should have suppressed that Hunter Biden laptop story because they don't also suppress misinformation about Trump. They clearly have a bias. And so if we're just going to keep to one platform,
What is the misinformation about Trump that they should suppress?
Well, I mean, a lot of the information that the Russiagate, and then also like how he said good guys on both sides, where they basically kept saying that he was supporting white supremacists, when even in that same speech he decried the white supremacists specifically. They never stopped that misinformation.
I don't think it was misinformation. But wait it.
No. Remember when they kept saying in the Charlottesville protests, there are good people on both sides.
He said there are good people on both sides.
And they use that
before he made that statement. He said, I'm not talking about the white supremacists or neo-Nazis. Those are terrible people.
Yes.
He said that right before he said there were good people on both sides. But then when the other side is reporting it, they would either be silent on that part or they cut it out completely just to paint a false narrative. And Twitter did not deem it fit to say this is going to harm Trump. So my question is, why was it necessary to protect? Was it a goal to protect the interest of Joe Biden? Because Joe Biden was He's a man. He has he has the same rights as every other American. So why should he be protected above any other American? So when you even talk about James Comey saying something about Hillary Clinton and not saying something about Trump, I would say he should have said about Trump as well. If there was anything dirty about Trump that needed to be known at that point in time, then it was wrong for him to have held back. But it wasn't wrong for him to have said that about Hillary. He should have said about both of
Well,
them if there was
I
anything.
think this is what happened when you have a weird obsession with the truth and you don't see the negative aspect that being truthful can bring. This idea, you know that there's something called a court of public opinion. And we know how people can cement a negative interpretation or a negative concept of something in somebody's brain. So, for example, even though James Comey come out and said that Hillary was under investigation, everybody automatically think, oh, on the right, Hillary was guilty. That is what the court of public opinion said. And I think it was part of the FBI policy not to report on any investigation of any political candidate within 72 days of the election. That was a policy because we know that information can tilt the election in certain direction. So that is the point, is how do we foster a more educating on people to make a decision without being biased. So that is what I'm getting to. The point is that yes, we should always be truthful, but we can understand that this idea of always being truthful does come with a limitation. And you cannot say to me that people who already have a pre-existing bias and will make up their mind with limited amount of information, even if that information is true or not, isn't sometimes detrimental. I don't think it's fair for you to say we can have this conversation, because you have
So,
to clearly admit to me that the truth does have limitation in order for me to think that you're being
someone who is
persuasive.
already biased, someone who is already biased, and new information in favoring his
Everybody is
position isn't
biased.
going to.
Everybody is
And that's
biased.
what I'm
Nobody is
saying. So
100%
so
objective.
so so let's take the Trump and Hillary situation. Some people were already biased towards Hillary, some people were biased towards Trump. Did you think that the information about Trump about Hillary would suddenly convert Hillary supporters to now be biased against her? Do you think that's what happened?
Yes,
No,
because some
those.
people who no, some people they so what they say, centrists is the people who swing election. And this was the FBI policy not to comment on an election. If I saw one person on Fox News who said no, there is, I think it's Judge Piero, that lady, who said that James Comey should not have done it because she lost an election because the FBI report on that she was under investigation, and later on was
Yeah.
found out that she was innocent of the charges. So you cannot do that. We it's not FBI policy. So
I,
you're looking at a stretch here, Charles,
I,
when
I,
you do the continuous
I,
defending of
I think we're drifting away
secret
from the news, right? Because James Comey is not a news network, right? He was reported on of what he said, and I think, yeah, if it should have been noted, that in the news reporting that, oh yeah, also probably Trump, and he, actually looking at the motives as to why he said what he said, noting the FBI policy. I think that should actually help give context to the information as to what he said and as to why he said it. That makes sense. I think that is something that should be news. And the thing is that if we truly just want, if the point of news is to inform people, then we should inform people. And I think only reporting on one half of the news, whichever side you on, just radicalizes people. Because even if you provide a little bit of information of, like, let's say, someone is a diehard Hillary supporter or a diehard Biden supporter, but they still are informed as to, Trump actually, did something positive, right? They're not going to be as radical as if they, only got one-sided news and they never heard about anything positive that Trump ever did, right? They are going to at least be calibrated well, so that they actually can have reasonable objections. Like, yeah, I understand Trump did that, but yeah, this is how I see it. And you can have a conversation with that person, but you can't really have a conversation with a person that doesn't know the other half of reality and it's just inferring the boogeyman.
Okay, I do think there's a boogeyman. I do think there's a boogeyman at times that we try to equate, we try to somewhat put under the counter with this far as equivalence. That's CNN do this, Fox News do this, so it's equally bad. I do think CNN and Fox News tilt or bent into this ideology or biasness or confirmation bias. But I do think Fox News is 100% or 1 million times worse than CNN. So I don't really buy. I don't
So,
really buy the false
so
equivalency
I'm
there.
not, I
We're
don't
not,
want to give the impression that I'm simping for
and
any. I
we're
don't watch any
not,
news. I don't watch any of
we're
those.
not making a case for Fox.
No, no, this is the problem
I
with
don't
you.
even watch
With,
Fox
this
News.
is the problem with it. This is always my problem, because I think sometimes you're a little bit too coward to own up to your proposition because you will go out and say, cite some example of censorship or whatsoever, but you only talk about right wing people being censored, and I think that does somewhat reinforce your
But
political
but but
stance
but
and the issue when
but
there are left wing people also being censored
I,
by you
here's the
or
thing. Like, so are you talking about Charles or me? Because I admitted.
Charles.
Okay.
Charles.
Well,
Okay, so let me come to my defense. Let me come to my defense. Kevin, this is what I'm saying. No, when I use these examples, these are examples that are readily known. They're easily known. You understand? I'm not arguing for a right position. In fact, when we started this stream, when I first gave the example of the Buffalo, the interview with that guy, the black guy who talked to the Buffalo shooter, I said something. I said, now CNN and MSNBC, they edited out that part. Now, if it was on the other side, if the guy had said, we don't guns are bad and all that, I'm sure Fox News is going to edit that part out as well. Why did I say that? Because I was trying to give you the impression that look, both sides are involved in this shady business as well, and I'm not for it. So I am these examples that I'm using are just examples that people can easily relate with, that people can see. Of course, Fox News has its bias. I also told Chloe when we started this stream that I don't watch Fox News for the simple fact that I know that even though I agree with their position, but I know that they are going to be biased, going to be ideological. So I don't want to be in an echo chamber. So I don't even watch them in the first place. Because when I start seeing those streets, it will tick me off, it will piss me off. I also give her examples of black conservative voices that I used to listen to, that I no longer listen to because even though I generally agree with what they're saying, I do not like their tactics because their tactics is what is ideologically based. And they are going to dig in their heels and bang their heads on the wall just to hold a position and not admit the truth because the truth might undermine their position. So whatever I'm saying, I'm not saying it from an ideological perspective. I'm not rooting for left. I'm not rooting for right. Of course, I have my own biases, but in this conversation, I am not making my own biases the focus of the conversation. I'm able to be objective, and I want to be objective. And if people on the left are being censored as well unfairly, unjustly, and their examples, I'll be in their corner as well to say, you know what, this is wrong. They shouldn't be
But
censored when they haven't done anything
Charles,
wrong.
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the point I'm trying to make is your inability to move off the position that the Democrat, that Twitter, that's why you said is protecting Joe Biden. What is there for Joe Biden to protect? Like I'm just saying that. Have you tried to seek out another explanation as to why the Joe Biden laptop was censored? Because you said that you agree with some form of censorship. The idea that you're just married to this idea that hey, they were protecting Joe Biden and that's it. I think that is the assertion that I find problematic. Like there's another explanation
So
out there
you
as to why
you
did
you
they
were the one you were the one that
explode.
said that they were protecting Joe Biden. So I am asking, why is there a need? That's a honest question. Why is there a need to protect Joe Biden? If
Yeah,
you if you are if
how
you
are they
can give me
protecting Joe? How are they protecting Joe Biden?
yes, why was there a need? Why was it a goal? How will that goal best serve the country? How will that goal best serve the population
But how
protecting
are
Joe
they
Biden?
protecting Joe Biden? How are they protecting Joe Biden?
You
They
were the
suppress.
one that said they suppressed the information to protect him. I am asking why was it a goal to
No,
protect him
I
in the first
said they
place?
suppressed the information because we didn't know what happened in the 2016 election. Is it 16?
No,
When
it's
there was a lot of information out there that was against Hillary and Julian Assange deliberately did that because wait, I don't want to turn the conversation in that direction. But this is the point: is that is misinformation was out there at one point about Hillary, and that was one of the reasons she lost the election, and therefore they didn't want the same thing to happen this time again.
because they
I
wanted
don't see a problem with that. Pardon?
him to win, right? They didn't want him
No,
to.
because they don't. Wait, the New York Times was the one. Wait, I don't get the logic you're making. The New York Times was the one who broke the news on Hillary emails. The New York Times. The New York Times.
Okay.
So I don't get the point you're making that there was this overly protective of the Democrat
The
candidate. I don't get it
Democrat.
because I think the people who are on the left, quote unquote left, as you would say, like New York Times and those people are more antagonism towards the Democratic Party than Fox News is towards the Republican Party, and it's not
But
even close. Fox News would never report on anything bad that Donald Trump does.
right,
There was
right.
a picture of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein
But
and they
And
literally
we don't
cut
disagree
out.
with you on that. We
but
Yeah,
don't
okay.
but
disagree with you on that.
but no, you do disagree with me on it because but because I am saying is they did not do it to protect him. It's a policy of Twitter because a left wing group had also has some hack information from CIA and Twitter did not publish it also. So it was a left and a right thing at the time. It's just a Twitter policy. I don't know why you're being pushing it into this idea that they are protecting Joe Biden.
If you were the one who made the assertion that they did it to protect Joe Biden, I did not make that
No,
claim.
I did
I
not say
only
that.
asked I, I
No,
only asked why was the information censored? Why was it suppressed? And you said they did it to
So
protect him, to prevent what happened in 2016 from happening. And I asked why was it necessary to protect Joe Biden? So I never said it was made to protect him.
even if I said that, I think people should be protected from false information out there on them. So okay, I get your point.
personally, I think that it's problematic to basically decide what is or isn't misinformation, right? And to suppress it, at least from a platform type of scenario, because like the way that if it really truly is misinformation, you should be able to also fight it with actual information and actually inform people. And I think the issue that happened with the Hunter Biden laptop is that it did turn out to be very relevant information, especially now when we're looking at like the ties with Russia and Ukraine and how much aid we're sending over there. It's it does speak to ethics, and that we are having those types of conversations about the president, right? And where the money is going and how it's being spent. It turned out as a very, very relevant question. But I think this whole policy of we have to shut down information. And again, I think that's different from the Hunter Biden laptop. Wasn't like someone is trying to spread child pornography, right? And we're gonna, oh, we censor that, why don't we censor the Hunter Biden laptop thing? Which I think had weird stuff on it as well. But
Because I think the problem with the Hunter Biden laptop is people are
Let's
making out to
give
be more.
TBC
it's assuming that people are stupid, right?
let's give TBC some talk time. TBC, welcome.
Oh.
Hello, hello. Good morning, wherever you are. Uh, Long time no see.
Morning. Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm fine, I'm fine.
Yeah,
I think
what's up?
Chloe and Kevin B. Black can both keep discussing. I was just listening in.
All right, go ahead,
Um,
guys.
I guess what
All
else
right. So
is it makes the assumption that the populace is just too stupid to
no,
be able
I
to.
think sorry. I think this is I can't believe it. We should divorce ourselves from the idea. And I think technology and the internet or YouTube or social media has proven this idea that this liberal framework in which we operate in, that if you give people more information and more information, they will come to the correct conclusion. That idea is just wrong. It's
Well,
just erroneous.
he,
It's not. Oh, wait, let me justify why I said that. We know that people are so ideology bent that no amount of information will move them off an ideology. Look in the case of the stolen election claim. More than 60 court has proven that hey, the election was okay. And the 70% of the Republican Party today still believe
So,
that the
so would
election
it have
was
been
stolen.
better not to get that information out? Would it have been better to not get the information about the truth of the election out just because some people are never going to accept it? Do you think
But the
that's what
election, the
really
truth of the
damaged?
election, no, the point I'm making is the truth of the election is out there and people are still refusing to accept it.
right,
So this idea that we give
Exactly.
people unlimited amount of information and they will change their mind is
that's
just
not
ludicrous.
that's not my point.
It's not about
That's not
changing people's minds.
No,
It's
it's
you are
about
saying
letting
that we
information
should
out.
fight bad information with good information. I'm saying that that
I know, but
assumption or
I think
presumption is not.
it should be out there. It should be out there, right? Here's my example. I think that it should be legal for grocery stores to sell junk food as well as healthy food, right? It's up for people to choose what they're going to eat. But if we had, and then that's what people are calling food deserts, right? If there's a store that only sells junk food, I think that's a bad store, right? But if people, I think the healthy food should also be available, and people can choose what they want to eat as long as both are available. I think that is what matters, and I think in there are a lot of contexts was only the junk food is available.
Oh, but then don't go to the store. Simple,
And don't
as
go
you
to
said.
the store, then you're going to starve.
Don't go to. do-
You have
Wait,
to.
you don't have to go on social media. You don't have to go on Twitter.
Yes,
Twitter is a privately
that is
owned
true. That is true.
company.
That absolutely is true. You don't have to go. That's the point I advocate for. I don't advocate for social media, and I don't advocate for watching the news.
I
No.
will say this though. I have noticed that now I might be biased. I probably am, but I have noticed that if you're not preaching typical left wing, um, extreme left wing talking points, you tend to get more censored on social media. But it depends on the site itself. But in general, that's what I think is the case.
It does depend on the site, yeah.
Like for example, on Twitter, if you say something against, let's say, men are men and women are women, and you can't switch your genders or something like that, you're going to face a lot of pushback on that, and you might even get your account removed. Whereas if I said the opposite, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. So what one example that I remember is it was the phrase "learn to code." Learn to code. Yeah, it became kind of a on a sort more so of a right meme, and basically replying to a bunch of and considered left wing journalists, and they were replying, "Okay, just learn to code," because that was a phrase that they would kind of write in their articles as this is what rural poor white communities can do, right? If they're saying they don't have jobs anymore, they shouldn't just learn to code, which those communities found incredibly insulting. And so when those journalists got fired or laid off, they got that criticism back. Well, you should just learn to code and then you can get a job, right? So it's kind of like, well, now this is how it feels to be given that criticism. And what Twitter
Hmm.
did was it banned those accounts that were posting the phrase "learn to code."
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's funny. Yeah, really.
But it has always been a thing of the conservative party. Like when people talk about Go start your own business. Go start your own business. I think it has always been a
Yeah,
political pride.
but you know,
That's true.
I haven't seen anybody be banned for saying just go start a business.
Yeah, because the point is that's what left wing are saying to some conservative. Go start your own social media network. No, you're being banned. Simple.
I would say that Kevin B. Black has a point there. Like the so-called conservative outlets tend to have this double standard where they can say the same, they can say something to not liberals per se, but let's say someone who has a different ideology. But when that logic is applied to them, suddenly they're the ones who are annoyed and they get angry about it.
I
Yep.
think everyone acts poorly on social media. Everyone acts like an ass.
And that's the point I was trying to highlight. I wasn't even taking any position. I have said it before Kevin came that both sides are ideologically possessed. That
Yeah,
both
but
sides would plead guilty. Both sides would.
I don't like that argument. I think when you do that, you create a false equivalent. It says, "Oh, both sides are equally incorrect." I think it's just a
Yeah.
coward stance. I think it's a coward stance to take. I think some of the problem that's the problem I have sometimes is people are so afraid to like make a proposition and stick to it and defend it.
It-
I am part. I am a lefty. Generally, I agree with the left on many social, cultural, and economical stuff. I am a lefty and I will start make that proposition and state it. I think sometimes is you say that okay, both sides do this, both sides are doing it. Sometimes the truthfulness does not lie in the middle of both sides, and I think that is the problem we have sometimes. I don't think it's okay to say okay then all right. It's a good
Kevin,
discussion to say all
Kevin,
right. Wait, I'm
Kevin,
gonna make one.
you're misreading me. When I say
No,
both sides,
I'm not.
no,
I'm
no, no.
not.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. When I say both sides are equally as guilty, I'm talking about their tactics. They're equally as guilty of using bad tactics. Okay, when I've been saying, okay, I said I generally agree with what Fox News is saying, but I don't listen to Fox News because I don't like their tactics. Am I saying Fox News is wrong in what they're saying? And not technically, I didn't say they were wrong. I said there are some black conservatives I don't listen to anymore, even though I agree with what they say. But I don't like their tactics. That's what I'm talking. It's not as if I don't have a position. I'm just floating. I have a position, but I also recognize that tactics also matter. And I see that both sides are using similar tactics. So when this side is criticizing the other side of using these tactics, but when it's applied to them, they don't, they have an issue with it. Then what do you expect me to do? I'm not that dogmatic. I'm not that ideologically possessed that I will not be able to critique the side that I stand with. Of course, I'm more conservative leaning or right leaning, as you would say, but I am not going to see something that is wrong just because a conservative person is saying it, and I will say, you know what, he's right. So I'm not going to take that critique.
No, no, that's not what I'm saying, Charles. I'm just simply saying that every time we try to use this couple, oh, both side does it, the left does it, the right does it, as a way to someone say it's the distribution or the bad this or the unfairness or the biasness is equally distributed on both sides. I think sometimes that's what I get from some of the sentiments they're expressing. I'm just saying that I agree. I can understand what you're saying, but I just don't think you're right in making that assessment.
So like you have to agree. Technically, both sides do have issues, and they do end up playing the same game, right? But a huge reason why we cannot to scientifically a certain level of saying, well, this one does it more versus that one does more, because inherently that would be in a bias analysis because
No,
we're not on.
wait.
Can I finish? We're not
Sorry.
on both sides all the time. We're not on both sides all the time, right? Like I so like and also platforms are not equally have the same portion. Twitter obviously has more liberals on it than conservatives, and like gab.com obviously has more conservatives than liberals, and Patreon has more liberals than conservatives. Locals.com has more conservatives than liberals. These platforms are not weighted equally, right? And so it makes sense that Twitter is, you know, tilting to the left because that's their main user base and audience, and that main user base does shape what happens on those things. But I think that not that many, you know, I don't see that many liberals going on gab.com, because I'm pretty sure if there's a sizable portion of them that went on those platforms, we would have similar stories of, you know, we're being censored for saying left-wing opinions on a right-wing you know, platform, because yeah, of course that would happen, or they would be ridiculed or bullied off the side or whatever. And so I think those biases, like like those biases do exist, and that's one big reason why I think it's all a waste of time. It's just all a waste of time, in my opinion. And you know, like it depends on where you are, because you know, like I used to be more on the left in the past, right? And actually, I had lunch with a friend today where, like, I had a really really bad experience with a very specific set of people. And I'm not saying all of these people, you know, are indicative of the left. All of these people are the average person of the left, but it was a very specific, you know, subset of a, you know, a specific portion of the left that I was associated with. And I had such a horrible negative experience when I told all of my conservative friends. They literally didn't believe me. None of them believed me. They thought I was exaggerating, I was whatever. And so when people are outside of these contexts, they have no way of gauging if you're telling the truth or not.
All right, so this is where, Chloe, I disagree with you, because you're falling in the same trap that Charles is falling in. Not because something is biased or one-sided makes it mean we cannot evaluate the validity of it. That is you're saying that okay, the news is biased.
I'm not talking about the validity. I never said anything about the
Or the
validity.
truthfulness whatsoever you say we cannot determine, like the truthfulness or whatsoever.
No,
So,
I wasn't talking about the validity or the truthfulness. I, like, when we were talking about one
you
side
say it makes
censoring
no
the,
sense. You say it makes no sense for us to try to determine what
well,
is
no,
true,
I
because
mean,
that is essential.
so,
Yeah, reinforcements of our biasness.
well, I mean, so, like, how often are the right wing people censoring a left wing opinion? How often does that
But
happen?
I did with it. I was making a point. I don't want I
Mm.
soon answer that question. But what I was trying to say is the reason why I'm biased, and I'm glad they admit that I'm biased, is because that I think I'm right. I think if I make a statement that hey, women should be an integral part of the workforce, or hey, we should have a minimum wage, that is not a political neutral stuff. But we can also assess if that is correct or not. We have, and that is why I consider myself a leftist. I think that the left is more accurate in diagnose many of the social ills that we have today. So this is the problem is I don't like the term bias. Being biased make us unwilling to adjudicate certain stuff. I think the biasness is necessary component sometimes of what we need to function in our society. Because I think the right claims and many of our political and social ills are just misinformed.
So this is, I don't want this to turn into a debate of if right or left is right, like, and that this has kind of gone
It is
into
right.
an area of an area that that's not really the topic of the conversation. Bias is bias, right? That, like, it exists, people have it. I'm not trying to make the case that it's an evil, and
Mhm.
I'm not, and I'm acknowledging that platforms inherently have a bias based off of the user base. So, but my point is that it's very hard to tell as to from if someone is right wing, right? They they feel like the world is against them. If a person is left wing, they feel like the world is against them, right? And how often one happens to the other, one, it depends on where they're spending their time. So if a right wing person is on Twitter, yeah, they're going to probably be confronted by a lot of left wing people. So it does feel like the world is against them. And if a left wing person is in, like, a podunk town where everyone's a redneck and they're queer, and so they feel like the world is against them. And so it depends on the context of as to where you are. and the opinions of people are like where you like, and the opinions of people around you, in whether you feel if there is a bias against you, and people might extrapolate that, well, this is average for the right to be attacked at all the time, or a left-wing person is saying this is average for all left-wing people to be attacked by the right all of the time. And that's the point that I'm saying is a single person cannot experience both of those experiences and then determine, oh, which one is more true than the other. It is a person's personal experience dependent on where they are in the context that they are and what platform that they're on or whatever. And so that was the point that I was making. Not if, left-wing people are wrong, or if they're wrong in their politics or wrong in their facts, or right-wing people are always right. My point is that the criticisms that I had in that situation only could have arisen in the context that I was in. A right-wing person would have never had the criticisms that I had of those people that I knew, because they would have never known those people or never been in those spaces. And so there are certain things that we just can't know about these disagreements as to how prevalent these disagreements or the censorship is. And that's my point.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but we can make assessment if those are right or wrong. That's what the
Yeah,
essential thing.
I get that point. So, but like I think that's a different discussion. Like my point is like that's a different can of worms, right? And we can kind of go for like 5 more hours talking about that. But I guess I wanted
We
to
don't have time
contain.
for that.
Yeah, Charles actually probably wants to sleep. That's weird, right? But like I think that's kind of the point. Like it's everything looks, everyone else is wrong except you. Like it's like we have that. That's a human inherent thing, right? And it does go to your point, Kevin, that like it is a human thing. But I guess getting back to the topic, my criticism is that it's it sets up a kind of a losing game when you realize that you can. It's like in advertising, right? And it's an arms race with all these news organizations. The moment one starts to exploit this thing, others start to exploit this thing, and it kind of ramps up because they are exploiting something that's inherent in human nature, and they know they're exploiting it because that's how they know they get ratings and to make more money. And it sets up this arms race where it gets to the point where they've done all these tactics, and it's getting to the point where then no one believes them. They kind of exhausted their trust in the pursuit of money, and they've lost their credibility. And I think that they're losing credibility in their claim that they are informative, right? People are recognizing, yeah, this is partisan, this is ideologically based, and the people that are going to stick around that's what they want. They just want that stuff. But the people who really truly were going to the news at one point to be informed, they're going to turn off. And so I see that, you see that in ratings, right? You see that in ratings for news organizations of where they're losing viewerships, they're losing money, they're losing clicks and views because they've kind of exhausted this cheat code, and it's played itself out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Point taken. I get the point here being made. But I don't know. I just think that this problem is just a problem with us. And I think the media has just figured out that, hey, because I think once we've introduced profit incentive into the equation, we're talking about meeting the demand of the people. And I think that's what the media is doing. All right. So an example that just came to my mind was a situation with Fox News and Newsmax. Fox News was not perpetuating this election fraud coverage or whatsoever. There was not. The Fox News started to do that when they realized most of their listeners started to turn to Newsmax that was perpetuating all this information, and they want to get back their audience. So they start to perpetuate all this election was rigged information. So this is the fact that the media is just responsive to the demand or the
Right.
information that the people want to see.
Yes.
Like a lot of the people in the Republican Party believe that the election was stolen, and Fox News is just catering it to
Right.
that audience right now because initially they wasn't doing that.
Yeah, and it ruins their credibility, right? Ultimately, and I think it's a mistake of short-term gain, right? Because and then in the long term you lose your reputation, and it's once it's very obvious as to why they're doing certain things or why they're reporting on only certain things or why they're omitting certain things, and people find out, it just crumbles the trust ultimately. And you find that like even with people who they call themselves experts, but as soon as you realize they have a bias, you're like, oh yeah, like everything you say is trash now, right? Again, getting back to the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, the expert witnesses that were presented on the Amber Heard side, just they were like, it was so clear that they were so biased, right? But they were people that clearly had expertise. They were clearly professionals. But because of what information that you can tell that they cut out, it all was for naught. They might as well just been a Joe Schmo that came off the street that was just simping for Amber, right? It ruined the legitimate credibility that they did have. And I think that is, if these news organizations want to exist in the long term, they have to adopt a certain level of integrity and ethics, because just being like a person or feeding into this dopamine hit is detrimental. It's detrimental for an individual person and is also detrimental for an organization. And it strays away from the reported mission that they state that they have, but it's not true.
Yep, guys. So we have to end it here. Uh, I I need to go to bed. I really need to go to bed. So thank you both for coming. Chloe, as usual. Kevin, yes, you brought the heat and you brought the smokes, which is always good for a conversation. To sharpen our tools so that we don't remain in an echo chamber. We don't build an echo chamber. So so any last thoughts, Chloe, Kevin, and we end on TBC.
Not really. I just have to say that when it comes on to censorship, censorship can be good, censorship can be bad. It's how we use it. I will agree with Chloe that I'm a little bit concerned about some of Twitter policy and some of social media policy. I know the lack of tolerance I see in some of social media platform at times. And I think that's where the discussion should be at time. I think the discussion should not be, hey, there should not be any censorship, but what is the line or where the line should be drawn when it comes down to censorship. And yeah, that's all I have to say. And as always, I've enjoyed being here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
yeah, thanks,
TBC, Chloe,
Kevin.
anything?
um yeah, it's just my opinion is that the news, like, I really do, I am glad that a lot of people are tuning off the news and again choosing to focus on like finding out things more organically, especially things that actually matter to them. And I think that it and this is with some of my friends, when we've tuned off the news, we actually have a more positive idea of like, we're actually able to see good news. And just like you kind of acknowledged before, people are tuned into bad news. But if there's something good happening in locally, I want to know about it, right? Because it positively affects me, and I'm able to see those things instead of just being inundated with really addictive bad news that from about things that are 5 states over that will never affect me, but it gives me like a weird dopamine hit or something like that. And I think that I think it's probably good for people to recalibrate and to understand actually what actually matters to them and focus on that, not just be overwhelmed with all the information all the time. to focus on the things that actually are relevant to their lives and the things that they're interested in, and just contain your sources of information to pertain to those things.
All right. So thank you very much, guys. So this has been a fruitful close to 3 hours. I'll catch you guys on another live stream. Bye for now.